With Ari and James, Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Hey, y'all having a good time?
And away we go on a Monday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. What's up, James? How are you?
10 out of 10.
Excellent.
Living the dream, as they say.
There you go. I don't know what dream that is, but way to go. We've got a lot to get to today. Baseball's heating up. John Morosi from MLB Network joins us coming up in about 15 minutes to break down everything going on in the Big 12 with baseball, plus Dan Fitzgerald, the Kansas baseball coach, fresh off a sweep of Arizona. Kansas has been hot as a pistol. Dan Fitzgerald joins us later on the show today. Plus, taking a look at some potential draft picks in the first round for the 2027, way too early Big 12, and who, if poised for a big year, could find themselves in the conversation. Right now, only one player for the Big 12 projected as a first-round pick on the heels of how many went in the first round this year?
Right.
So we'll dive into potential prospects who could be first-round picks based on the year they have. Spoiler alert, Texas Tech has a lot. Plus, we're continuing our series to break down each top five at every position, and we're looking at top five safeties today, which I think might be the strongest position group we've looked at so far. Tough top five to crack in that one. How are you, James?
Yeah, I would say the teeth of the defense between linebackers and safeties that cover that middle of the field, strong as ever here in the Big 12. But I'm phenomenal. Love that KU blue that you're rocking today.
Thank you.
KU's won 48 games, most in school history. The only season that would come even close is 1993.
Yeah, the last time that Kansas got to a College World Series, the first and only time that Kansas has been to the College World Series, they were 2 and done and went in 1993. Kansas has not won a conference championship of any kind, which they're in position to do now with a 3-game lead since 1949 in something called the Big Nine.
The Big Nine?
Yeah.
There was a Big Nine?
Apparently.
Today I learned there was a Big Nine. I know we had a Big Six and we had a Big Eight, but the Big Nine, and I'm sorry I misspoke, KU's won 37 games, but it's their most wins through the first 48 games of the season.
Yeah.
In school history.
Sorry, Big Seven.
Big Seven.
In 1949.
Okay. So
that makes way more sense.
I was going to say, who'd we lose between 8 and 9 and 9 and 8? So we go Big 6 to Big 7 to Big 8.
What'd you do this weekend? Anything fun?
We took in a billion youth sporting events.
Give or take a couple?
Give or take a couple. There were at least 6 games over the last less than 48 hours. But one of the games saw a viral moment in real time.
Okay.
Like you get on X, you get on Instagram, you always see those viral like half-court heaves or three-quarters court shots in a high school game. This one happened in a 6th grade basketball game. We weren't participating. We were the next game, but we watched most of the second half of the game before us. And one team's ahead of the other. And again, these are supposed to be 5th and 6th graders. Some of them looked like they were maybe freshmen in high school, but I digress. So AAU tournament. One team is trailing the whole game. They look dead in the water. They're down by 10 with like 5 minutes to go. And then they slowly start to chip away. But it still never really felt like they were going to get there. 4.4 seconds left. The team that is ahead has the ball. They go down the floor. They throw it out of bounds. So there's like 2 seconds left.
Up 3.
Up 2. They're up 2. So and again, these are 6th graders that if you get the ball to half court, it's a win, right? When both teams start pressing, like the ball handling is the last to catch up to everything else. So the ball's there's been 38 turnovers and the score is 16-14 or whatever it was. Neither team had 20. They inbound the ball to the point guard. He somehow, some way gets to like the volleyball line just beyond half court, heaves it, not even like a baseball pass style, like traditional shot, puts every muscle fiber into that attempt that he had, and he banks it in.
Wow.
Didn't see anybody with a phone, but I mean the entire arena erupted. And I'm thinking, this is maybe better than a lot of those viral clips that I've seen of high school games where girls basketball, they'll chuck it from 75 feet because the kid was only in 6th grade, paper thin, and somehow, some way, hit the shot. It was total madness in the arena. Didn't care who were you were rooting for.
Right.
Like, both fan bases were just losing their minds. Even the losing team on the floor, they weren't dejected. They were just in absolute shock that it went in. So that was probably my number one highlight, was just being there in person to take that in.
Did you like run into the middle of the court and start celebrating with everybody else? That'd have been great.
No, but there was a lot of that. No, my jaw hit the floor. You know, I'm not a real rah-rah. How are you at youth sporting events? I think we've talked about this before.
I like to encourage. Yeah. I'm very positive.
Okay.
I can, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm loud, but I'm not
decibel
quiet.
level. 10 out of 10?
I'd say 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Depends on the event.
It's when Cynthia is sitting directly behind me on the bleachers and just belting out a play-by-play scouting report of every kid on the floor, even when her son's not out there, and it's just like piercing.
Classic Cynthia.
I'm not at a concert. Like, I don't need that. But encouragement is okay. But when the ball...
Light encouragement.
That's what I like to hear. Okay? Yeah. No, when the ball left his hands, I thought, this has a chance to go in. It's almost like it was in slow motion, you know, as you, like, relive it. But what a moment for that kid and all those kids on the floor just to be there and take that in. It finally felt like, okay, this is a really cool thing.
Have you ever been a part of a game like that? Is it the only like experience you have in watching or being a part of a game like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that I have. You know, in person as a fan, I've never seen a half-court shot. I've seen a team as a play-by-play announcer hit a half-court shot, but it was at halftime. So I've never seen one like in the closing seconds.
To win it.
To win it, right, where it's just total pandemonium, and didn't see it coming at the 6th grade level. So it was quite shocking.
That's cool. I got to see dinosaur tracks this weekend.
You did.
Actual dinosaur tracks.
They exist. They're there.
113 million years old. Yeah, we and about 31 dads, so there's about 62 of us total, camped this weekend in Dinosaur Valley out on the Paluxy River, not too far from Fort Worth. And it was pretty crazy to see all these like very well preserved 100 million year old tracks from dinosaurs that are in the rocks. And I mean, they're below the river, so you have to look into the water to see them. And now I guess like it used to be where you can, you know, go towards them, just kind of swim towards them, be around them. Now they like completely shut off the area, so you kind of have to stand around and look inside and see.
Is this Glen Rose?
Glen Rose.
Okay. I'm Google imaging to see. You can keep going. I got to get a taste of this. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean it was really cool. And you know, it's funny is this group. There's probably let's say 15 to 20 dads and fourth graders that have been doing this twice a year, going camping with the same group for 4 years now. So I mean, you're talking about eight campouts together. Like this is kind of a very unique mix where the group like. So, like, they're getting more and more adventurous, starting to do things on their own. So, you know, the dad's usually hanging out in one area, and then you know, after a while you look up, you're like, all right, where are the boys? So it turns out, like, they were heading down to the river and, I mean, exploring and like, just doing general things that I would imagine most kids aren't doing a lot these days. And so it was just really refreshing, once again, to be out there and, like, you get this group of boys. They're all working together. They're like trying to move this huge log across the river. For what reason? I don't know. They're like beavers trying to dam something. But it was just watching them, and like you finally kind of go down there and see what they're up to, and it's like, man, this is incredible.
It's enlightening.
Very enlightening.
You know, I pod, right?
Big time pod guy.
Yeah, I pod. Recently listened to a podcast. They were talking about this very thing, and it was like the retired head of a Delta task force, and he was talking about all the benefits of, in our demo, if you will, and his, like the benefits of kids just going out and playing and exploring, and you just see what you can find, right? And all like the processing and what it does in terms of the neuroplasticity in your brain. Like there are so many benefits of just figuring stuff out. So that's super cool. And this is legit. These are legit dinosaur tracks. Like I've got all my Google images pulled up now. Just want to confirm these are real dinosaur tracks.
Yes. Confirmed.
This is nutty.
115 million years old. They apparently were covered by sediment, which protected them from erosion for millions of years.
Yeah, they're like burrowed into the rock. Is this rock?
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. So how big were these? Like, are we talking like size 12 footprint? Are we talking
Massive.
like 3 by 3 feet?
Yeah, these are footprints from theropods and sauropods. Sauropods are like the massive, long-necked animals, dinosaurs, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Over 60 meters, weighing exceeding 100 metric tons. I don't know what that means, but it's a lot. Yeah. So these are giant dinosaurs.
Okay, so this thing from
Almost looks like a bronchiosaurus, I guess is how you describe it.
very similar.
Yeah.
Like from neck to tail, probably 5 or 6 averaged size sedans.
So like your car?
Like my car, probably 6 Volkswagens
Yeah.
long.
I mean, it's a sport, so it maybe 5.
Yeah, it's a sport edition. Depends if I'm in comfort mode or sport mode. A couple more compliments showered my way over the weekend about my trunk. No big deal. Target pickup order. The guy loved it.
Big trunk.
But this is insane, man. This is... How far is this from where we live?
About an hour and a half, depending on traffic.
And you said the footprints were massive.
Yeah. I mean, do you see the animals they came from? Those aren't tiny footprints.
This is cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. And again, like, you know, I had basically no service the entire weekend, so it was phenomenal. Because the whole time you're like, oh man, you keep looking at your phone, you're looking for spots. Meanwhile, like, it's the greatest thing ever when you're forced to not be around your phone. And even then, you're still looking at it. You're like, oh yeah, I still don't have any text messages or missed calls because, you know, I don't have any service out here.
Right.
So just to kind of like be forced to not look at your phone and be in nature, it was incredible. And again, like, where these boys are most of the time looking at their iPads or doing things not outside, it was just great to be like, all right, you go play and do your own thing and figure some stuff out. I mean, that makes a ton of sense what you're talking about in terms of your brain elasticity, right? Like the more you figure out, I mean, it goes back to like hunter-gatherer days of like
That's exactly right.
going out and figuring out what's going on in the world. Now, because of technology and knowledge, it's like, oh yeah, all I have to do is just search this up and suddenly I know everything I need to know about that, even though you most likely don't.
Yep. Shocking that going out and
Learning.
learning and figuring things out does way more for your brain than having everything spoon-fed on a screen. And it's really hard as parents to kind of balance that, because it would be great if the kids were outside exploring, but kids these days, they don't want to do that. Like, they're wired, they're in a classroom all day. They've got these screens in most education systems. You walk into a classroom and everybody has a Chromebook or whatever it is. So we have very much lost that. And I try really hard on my phone. Like, I have it on Do Not Disturb right now, so I get no notifications on my screen. And I'll do that at various points throughout the day for hours at a time, just to force myself to take a break. And those are my most productive parts of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, these phones are wired to keep us addicted to them. All the apps, all the things.
All the attention. They're wired in order to take your attention away from what you're doing and draw you back into the apps. All right, Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn Watched on Big 12 Studios. The latest on Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby. According to Adam Schefter, this is from Saturday, Texas Tech quarterback Sorsby, who's under NCAA investigation for making bets via a gambling app, has retained the notable lawyer Jeffrey Kessler to try to regain his college eligibility. That via Adam Schefter and Pete Thamel. If Sorsby and Kessler are unsuccessful in finding a path to eligibility, declaring for the NFL's supplemental draft then would become an option. Sorsby would have until June 30th to declare for the supplemental draft. So basically, hiring Kessler was a way to try to accelerate this process so they can get a decision and figure out what his future is going to be.
That's exactly right. And Kessler isn't just any lawyer, right?
Yeah.
He's repped Tom Brady, Ezekiel Elliott, Adrian Peterson on these NFL disputes he fights, and he usually wins. So the fact that Sorsby's camp is being this aggressive tells me that they want a resolution before the season, not mid-season or after the season. So the timeline, a best-case scenario, right, is that the NCAA reaches, because they're pushing for a settlement. So best-case scenario, the NCAA reaches a settlement with Sorsby's camp, and it's a reduced suspension or reinstatement with conditions. The goal is to have that before fall camp opens in late July. That's a tight window, but it's not impossible. With that said, if the eligibility path fails, Brendan Sorsby has until June 30th to declare for the supplemental draft. So we've got basically just under 2 months from his side to get this resolved. And for him to enter the supplemental draft, he has to be ruled ineligible by the NCAA by June 30th. And then he has to apply to the NFL, and then the league has to approve him. So there are a lot of steps and really 3 potential scenarios that could play out here in the next 60 days.
Here's what Jonathan Jones of CBS said about the supplemental draft and Sorsby's prospects.
Brendan Sorsby, if he wanted to apply to the NFL for the supplemental draft, folks I talked to believe that he would not be approved. And so the supplemental draft seems like an extremely unlikely pathway for Brendan Sorsby this summer. And here's why. The NFL is obviously very hard on those who gamble on NFL games. And while he is not in the NFL right now, and he would not be up against those rules, if you are in the NFL and you do bet on your team, again, win or lose, you are banned at a minimum of 2 years. That's how seriously the league takes this. And so let's play this out where over the next 2 or so months, the NCAA ultimately rules him ineligible. Then he could apply for the supplemental draft, and the NFL gets to decide whether they allow him into the supplemental draft. Then a team has to determine whether they would take Brendan Sorsby. With all of this happening, I had one high-ranking team executive tell me on Monday that he's frankly untouchable right now. So plenty more to figure out, but this idea that, he can just bypass any sort of punishment from the NCAA and go to the NFL, that doesn't seem like reality right now.
See, and I think that's what people have missed in this whole thing is the narrative or the assumption is, okay, he's going to be ineligible to play this season at Texas Tech, so he goes on to the NFL. Well, a la Calvin Ridley, that's not always the case. The NFL is maybe more strict than the NCAA. So the 3 scenarios...
Yeah, they're not jumping for joy to draft a guy that's, accumulated thousands of bats over the last few years.
And could potentially have to sit out at least a year or 2 in the NFL. So best case scenario is Kessler and Sorsby's team, they cut a deal by the end of June. Sorsby gets a reduced penalty. He's back in fall camp. I think that's probably the least likely of these scenarios. The realistic case is that this drags into July and he's ruled ineligible. And then the worst case scenario, though, is the permanent ineligibility. He gets blocked by the NFL for the supplemental draft, and one of college football's most talented quarterbacks, his future is very much in limbo from that point forward, even more so than it is as we sit here today.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. On the way next, John Morosi from MLB Network. He joins us to talk a little college baseball and Big 12 baseball. That's next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
This is Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Let's talk some Big 12 baseball now with John Morosi from MLB Network. John, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Great, thank you, and appreciate your time. Fresh off of a trip to Morgantown to watch West Virginia and K-State. Impressions of Big 12 baseball right now?
Loved it. I had a great time over the weekend. I was there Saturday and Sunday. Was able to join the call there with Lanny Fratteri and Tyler Barnett for the Mountaineers and the Wildcats. Just had a great time. Certainly, I spent most of my year covering the major league level, but the ability to understand all the great things going on now with Big 12 baseball, how competitive the league is, that was certainly a common theme. Talking to people on both sides, just how deep the conference is and the quality of baseball week in and week out. I really enjoyed it. That's a fun team to watch at West Virginia. Really athletic team. Gavin Kelly's going to be a really high pick in next year's draft. The pitching I thought was excellent. It's rare that I get a chance to see a complete game at any level of baseball, and I saw that on Saturday with Chanson Cole, who last year at this time was pitching at the Division II level, but you credit Steve Sabins with the great work that he's done there at WVU, following up on what Randy Mazey did for so long. Just a really great culture. Guys go there and get better, and it was just a lot of fun to soak in the atmosphere. More than 2,000 fans there both days. So just a great weekend of baseball in Morgantown.
Well, and Sabins is known as just a relentless recruiter. So paint the picture in terms of just your West Virginia, Morgantown experience and how they're all in on Big 12 and West Virginia baseball.
Well, they really are, and you can tell just by being on campus how important baseball is there. I born and raised in Michigan, and certainly when you're around the Big Ten circles every now and then, you don't really see that level of media attention. There were more than a dozen reporters there. Saturday's post-game press conference for the middle game of the series. Steve Sabins answering questions, and same with Gavin Kelly, one of their star players. So you don't often see that in the Big Ten, to be honest with you. So to see that level of media interest, you really get a sense for how important it is on campus there in Morgantown. And also players want to go there. They have a phenomenal player development center that, as I was saying over the weekend, I felt like you could probably have launched Artemis 2 out of that place. And just all the technology and the force plates and the motion capture cameras that I don't understand, but the players understand it, and there's a lot of people there that do understand it. So they've got some technicians that understand how to bring all the information out of the technology and then make it actionable for the players. And that's how you bring in a lot of really talented guys from Division II, as Steve Sabins has done. They come to Morgantown, they move up a level, and they get better. And that was the case. The Saturday and Sunday starters for West Virginia, both Division II transfers. Chanson Cole on Saturday and Dawson Montesa on Sunday. Of course, they were able to sweep Kansas State. Friday starter Max Yell is someone that's really emerged into being probably a top 50 pick in the draft as a lefty who was a reliever before this year. And then comes back from Tommy John surgery, refines his repertoire a little bit, improves his command. He's got a nasty cutter that now is blending together that slider and fastball. And he's a tall lefty that's got really good stuff, and scouts love guys like that. So it really is interesting to see how players have chosen to play at WVU. Of course, just this last week, a busload of people from the program in Morgantown went up to watch J.J. Weatherholt, who you both know well from everything that he's done there, both at WVU and now at the Major League level with the Cardinals. He was playing in Pittsburgh, so it was a really proud moment for the program to see Weatherholt and Victor Scott playing for the Cardinals at the Major League level on the same team, both being Mountaineer alums. So just really, really special experience to understand what makes the program tick and just why overall Big 12 baseball is so exciting.
Yeah, great point and great stuff on J.J. Weatherholt there. The surprise team right now is Kansas, leading the conference. They've been to the College World Series once, and it was in 1993. Haven't won a conference championship of any kind since 1949. And I'm sure some of what you just talked about there with Sabins is true with Dan Fitzgerald. What stands out to you about Kansas, and maybe more specifically about their coach, manager, Dan Fitzgerald?
Dan Fitzgerald's done a great job. I think he's one of the great coaches in NCAA baseball overall. He came into Kansas and was really tasked a few years ago with reviving that team, and he was able to recruit a lot of top-level junior college players. Now, he's got a background and he's really worked at every level of college baseball. He played Division III. He coached the JUCO level, so he's understood, I think, one of the most important things in baseball, which is how do you evaluate talent? And how do you find the way that the talent will mold to your roster? And so He's built a very exciting brand of baseball with initially a lot of JUCO transfers, and that made the Jayhawks competitive right away after Dan arrived to campus. He revived the excitement around the program, too, to where you've got a lot of student support. A lot of fans from the community there in Lawrence are going to the games, and it is now one of the toughest atmospheres to play in as a road team in all of college baseball. And that's what West Virginia is about to find this weekend, going into Lawrence and just seeing what that atmosphere is like and all the great work that Dan and his team have done. But it's an interesting contrast in styles. West Virginia, they don't have anybody who's got 10 or more home runs. Gavin Kelly's getting closer, but they're predicated on running the bases aggressively, bunt, some of those smaller fundamentals. The Jayhawks have 4 guys with more than 10 homers, and that is not easy to do in college baseball. LeBlanc is leading the way there. Mungarrieta has come in, a Venezuelan player who's really had a great season for the Jayhawks. Dykhoff has played really well, and Tyson Owens has been all over the player of the week conversation in the Big 12 for a long time. We haven't even talked about Ballinger yet, and he's one of the better players on the roster, too. So an exciting offense. I expect those to be some high-scoring games. It's been an interesting way that WVU has really built their season and their candidacy to potentially host a regional, but they're going to run up against a different kind of an offense. Kansas State has a good offense, and West Virginia was able to sort of quiet them down over the weekend. It's going to be a much tougher task to keep the Jayhawks down in their ballpark this weekend. So I think it's going to be one of the must-watch series anywhere in college baseball this weekend, WVU at Kansas.
Yeah, with 2 programs with regional host aspirations, West Virginia and KU this weekend in Lawrence, essentially, John, what is it that we should be watching for?
Right, so let's start there with the potential of a regional host. Right now, if the season ends today based on RPI, then Kansas would be one of the regional hosts. And then Cincinnati and West Virginia, the next 2 teams down in the RPI ranking. So both of them still with a decent chance to still host a regional, but they're going to have to win series. And that's where, for West Virginia, you'd have to think if they don't win this series on the road, Kansas is probably on a glide path to being a regional host. This is a massive series for both teams. And so I do think that one thing that West Virginia has been able to do is line up Maxiell to start Friday night. And we all know that in college baseball, the Friday win is so important. It sets you up so that way if you win Friday, you just have to split the next 2 games to be able to win the series. And so I think West Virginia is going to be very aggressive in chasing that win on Friday night, trying to get Maxiell. And really, Yell is someone that Kansas, at least as a starter, has not faced before. There's not a ton of familiarity there. So maybe that does play in the favor of the Mountaineers in that respect. But I just think Kansas and their lineup, it's going to be so much fun to watch. And again, Owens is such a dynamic player. I mentioned Ballinger, too. He's someone that really, I think, is just scratching the surface of how good he is going to be. So it's going to be a really diverse offense for Kansas, the number of different ways they can score runs. I think it's just going to be a showdown in Lawrence this weekend.
How do you think the Big 12 stacks up with some of the other conferences?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when you look at the at-large bids, they probably won't have quite as many as the SEC. And the ACC is comparable, I think, maybe the number of at-large bids that we'll see. But it's an important question to ask as you compare, because one thing I kept hearing from coaches and players as I was doing my homework over the weekend was just how deep the league is. You might not have a top 5 or a top 10 team in the RPI rankings right now, certainly a lot of SEC teams there. But I do believe that the overall depth of the conference is as good as it's ever been. And it's an interesting time in college baseball. You're seeing teams like Clemson, Vanderbilt. They're fighting right now for at-large bids. Who would have ever thought we would say that? So there's multiple Big 12 teams ahead of both Clemson and Vanderbilt right now in the RPI rankings, which I think just tells you how good the conference is. I mean, this is one of those scenarios where every midweek game, the Big 12 has got to support the Big 12. You want all of your teams, even if it's your most severe in-state rival, you want that team to win their midweek games to build up the RPI for the league. And I just think that's one of the interesting things that you look at with the RPI and how all the math works out. I always say, guys, I never do math live on TV because I've always I get nervous doing that. But I do know what the rankings say, and the rankings say the Big 12 is a really great baseball conference.
See, I do the opposite and then make myself look like an idiot when I do that. So I should probably just subscribe to your belief. That's a way better idea.
I'm carrying the one. I'm trying to work on that, and I'm always afraid I'm going to step in it when I'm doing math on TV.
Yep.
John, it feels like, when it comes to the NFL, and the NBA's kind of always been this way, but more so in the NFL, rookies are playing more than ever, and there's kind of this new era of college football players are more ready now for the NFL. What's it like in terms of Major League Baseball? Are guys getting called up and more ready at a younger age? Just what's the trajectory look like there?
Yeah, it's a great question. They are. And look at the Mets roster, for example. You got Nolan McLean and Carson Benj, who it feels like probably a couple of years ago you were talking about them on this show. And they were Oklahoma State Cowboys very, very recently. And by the way, that'll be a great series coming up this weekend for the Cowboys playing Arizona State. But I think as you've seen the compression of minor league baseball, fewer teams in minor league baseball, and also fewer rounds in the draft. Those two things working together mean that there are just fewer spots in professional baseball, period. It's created a trickle down where actually a lot of the international leagues, especially in Mexico, that league is as good as it's ever been in the last 60 years probably. The leagues in Asia are really good because there are top-end, excellent ball players who don't have spots to play in professional baseball, whereas they would have been drafted maybe in the 25th round and getting a chance to play. The 25th round isn't an option any longer. So I do think that as a result, if you're channeling more players to college baseball, which is one of the takeaways from this movement in MLB with fewer spots, more players are going to college instead of signing as high school players. And as a result, the college baseball step is functioning as almost a junior minor league. That to me is what I'm seeing. It's minor league baseball with aluminum bats. And that's where the caliber of play, I thought over the weekend was really good. It's comparable to what you might see at a high class A game in a lot of cases in terms of just how much talent there is on the field. And so I think college baseball competitively is as strong as it's ever been. Now, especially at the Power 5, Power 4 levels, where maybe you don't see quite the same amount in more of the middle tier because of the transfer portal, you're seeing players transferring up. So I think those strong conferences with a really rich NIL support, they're getting better and better to where I think players are channeled to the Big 12, to the SEC, to the ACC, to the Big 10 in particular, to where those conferences, and it's like watching a minor league baseball game. It really is a great fan product. I thought yesterday I was really impressed that the Mountaineers on a Sunday afternoon, game is over, and they set up all the tables on the field, and fans come down, kids run the bases, They all get autographs. It's a really good way of serving your community that I think in a lot of great college baseball markets, which you have a ton of in the Big 12, a lot of these programs do it right. And I know it's the case, and we talked about Lawrence already and Stillwater and Willie Bloomquist, who I've covered, goodness, when he was a player with the Mariners 21 years ago, I was covering him every day. So you got a lot of great people in this conference that have built it up into being what it is today.
Yeah, well said. Are you going to be doing other games in college? Give us kind of a sense of what this looks like moving forward for you.
Sure. No, a great question. I had a ton of fun. So that was nothing yet on my schedule, but I would love to. I would love to do more because I really enjoy. I did some play-by-play, which was fun for me to do something different. Usually I'm on the field when I'm doing Major League broadcasts. So really loved it. I would love to do it more often. I really enjoyed calling the game up in the booth. And for me, that's a new skill. So really the trip down there was, I had talked for years with Steve Sabins and Randy Mazey about wanting to get down to Morgantown for a weekend. I had done a story on Alek Manoah years ago, and we've always stayed in touch. They said, hey, come on down sometime. We'd love to have you up in the booth and enjoy a weekend. So the schedule worked out this time, and I would love to do it again. It was really a treat for me. Learned a lot and learned a lot about why the Big 12 is such a great baseball conference.
Great stuff. And, yeah, Randy's the best. We love having him in the Big 12, and Steve Sabins has picked up right where Randy left off. So, John Morosi from MLB Network, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it very much. This was fantastic. Hopefully we can do it again soon.
I would love it. Enjoy the rest of the conference season and that Big 12 tournament in Surprise, Arizona. I've been in that ballpark many times for spring training. What an amazing atmosphere that's going to be. So to all the fans, really enjoy that conference tournament this year.
Yeah, I cannot wait, and agreed. It's going to be way better there than it has been, I think, in Arlington. All right, John Morosi, MLB Network, joining us here. He was at West Virginia and K-State this weekend, and was able to be on the call and experience that. And You've got Kansas and West Virginia next weekend, basically for a Big 12 championship, with Kansas kind of clinging to a lead. Dan Fitzgerald, Kansas's baseball coach, will join us later on in the show today. But it's been quite a season when you think about some of the surprises at the top of this league right now.
Yeah, KU's 20-4. I mean, West Virginia and Arizona State are both 16-8. And then UCF has had a really nice year, and Cincinnati has more top 100 wins than anybody else in the country.
Wow.
They've won 5 in a row. So they're in a position to maybe host with West Virginia and Kansas, the front runners right now in the Big 12. Great stuff from John. John was tremendous on that West Virginia K-State call. K-State is sliding, man. They've lost 7 in a row, and you're kind of starting to see the separation in the league. Oklahoma State's hot right now. They've won 6 in a row. The top 6 schools right now with TCU and all their injury issues kind of sliding, they've lost 3 in a row. There's starting to be a little bit of separation when it comes to Big 12 baseball.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We've got our top 5 players at each position coming up. Our series continues with a deep look at the safeties position on the way. On the way next, though, we talked last week about this new deal with Duke and Amazon, but it is not without controversy. We'll discuss next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
Blitz coming, jailbreak, and they run the perfect play. It's small. He's big. He's down inside the 5 to the 1. BJ Payne tripped him up to save the touchdown. What an effort here.
And there it is. They fake the handoff and to the backside. And another tackle for loss at the 20, this time by BJ Payne. They tried to get the man on the edge on the far side, and VJ was having none of it.
It's always about how you finish. Kobe Williams hit by Payne. Second down. And he'll make you pay. Handoff. Parker gets stuffed, stays on his feet, and now is going to go down.
Won't play the drop. Hands off to Hishaw. Steps through an ankle tackle and rumbles below the 30. Got him to the turf.
Kansas State going to try and put some pressure on it. Floor steps up, floats one toward the end zone, does not have a receiver there, and that's an interception to end the half. BJ Payne with his first interception of the year.
4th downs this year. A big one in this second half. Brown stopped originally, and the ball comes out. Is the play dead, though? The whistles came after the ball came out.
Big 12 today.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12 Conference. Big 12 today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Of course, if you're not yet already, download the TuneIn app. Search Big 12, heart the channel. That way it shows up each and every time you open up the app. And, of course, check out big12studios.com to find all the places you can stream us each and every morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. We are presented by Modelo. All right, so last week we talked about the Duke deal with Amazon Prime Video. Now, you know, television revenue is the number one driving source of revenue for colleges, for universities, for sports. And so for Duke to be able to go outside their partnership with the ACC and ESPN felt like a pretty big deal. Well, this week, the Big Ten is pushing back and saying, yeah, the Michigan-Duke game you don't own the rights to, we do, which is based in part, James, from the fact that ESPN had control over the Duke-Michigan game this year, which in an alternative, in a world in which you alternate, gives the Big Ten the rights to that game, which means Duke sold the rights to a game they did not own.
Right, and it's just another example of the power struggle between these leagues. I mean, Duke, so the Amazon Prime, I keep saying Amazon Prime, I guess it's just Amazon. It airs on Prime. The 3 games for Duke, they're 3 really big non-conference games. Duke, Michigan, the Duke UConn game, and then they play Gonzaga in Detroit. All 3 are neutral site games. The Big Ten is saying to the ACC and to ESPN, hey, you guys had this game last year at Madison Square Garden. It's our turn. And there is a gray area because it's played on a neutral floor. It's not a home game for either school. And the Duke-Michigan game last year, like, here's why there's so much skin in the game for this one particular matchup. Duke-Michigan last year, which they played it in D.C., it was on ESPN. It was ESPN's most watched college basketball regular season game in 7 years. They were the top 2 teams in the country. It was the first time we had seen a 1-versus-2 regular season matchup since like 2008. It was only the 3rd time ever. And so the Big Ten is saying, hey, it's our turn, which by our they mean Fox. And Fox is also supporting the Big Ten. Like, they don't want to let Amazon walk in and just take that game when it was the most watched game in 7 years. So there's a lot on the table when it comes to this, and a power conference showdown between the two.
Well, and I would imagine there's somewhere in writing where it stipulates how that would work out. I mean, that to me was maybe the most eye-opening part of this entire conversation was how can you sell this when you don't really have what I thought was the rights to sell it, because you're foregoing your own ability to sell that product by giving it to the conference. You know, it shows in many ways what the ACC is up against in terms of just the internal strife, James, because I just don't see a Big 12 school doing this because of what it would mean, I think, for the conference.
By what it would mean for the conference having a standalone school?
Yeah, going outside the conference rights to generate their own revenue from their own rights.
Yeah, I mean,
Kansas could probably do something similar. Kansas drives an audience for basketball in a way that no other programs do or few other do. So I'm sure they could. And they can go out there right now and go schedule 3 big-time non-conference games and say, well, we own the rights to these games because we're going to play them out in different cities that the Big 12 doesn't connect. But the Big 12 just has a better connective tissue right now from a membership standpoint.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's really well said. I mean, this is essentially Duke is doing in basketball what we've seen Clemson and Florida State and now North Carolina do in football, which is make it very clear that they're open to stepping outside of the conference. You've got Florida State and Clemson literally in court trying to get out of the ACC. You've got North Carolina. Remember last summer they were in talks with the SEC trying to plead their case for the SEC to take them. And now maybe we see, not on the same level, but a sample of that when it comes to Duke in basketball. So the contract part is really intriguing, and maybe the lack of oversight, because these MTEs, which are multi-team events in college basketball,
also known as tournaments,
non-conference tournaments. I hate that we use the term preseason. They are non-conference tournaments, and they do count. They're not exhibition games. But those are usually owned and operated by the television networks, usually ESPN. That is a huge moneymaker for ESPN, much like a lot of the bowl games are in college football. So there's not really a gray area there. The schools are asked to participate, ESPN collects the revenue, and we go on. So, but the standalone non-conference neutral site games is where it gets really intriguing. And I'm sure ESPN is, I wouldn't use the word scared, but concerned that more teams will bypass their MTEs and schedule these standalone non-conference showdowns. And Duke, Michigan last year was the prime example of it. And I can't think of a ton of Big 12 schools that are doing that. BYU played UConn in Boston this past non-conference season. I think Texas Tech maybe had a standalone game at some point in the non-conference, but outside of that, it felt like, the Big 12 is very heavily invested in the Players Era. We've got 8 teams. Half of the league will be in the Players Era Festival this year in Vegas, but nobody's really touched we're going to have these one-off neutral site games. So I think we're still just very much scratching the surface, if even that, when it comes to Big 12 schools doing that.
Well, look, last week was a really big week in college sports for multiple reasons. Certainly the Duke deal here was a big reason. Of course, we talked about the Redbird deal with the Big 12, and we already had, at least UCF basically publicly say no thank you. And, one of the more underappreciated stories that came out last week was how much money each SEC and Big Ten school handed out to member institutions based upon 2025 earnings. And, basically it's the Big Ten and then everybody else in terms of revenue. Like we've always talked about the SEC and the Big Ten as if they're on equal footing, and that isn't the case here. The Big Ten is making and handed out $80 million to each of their member institutions. The SEC, meanwhile, was in the range of $60 million. The Big 12 in ACC are closer to $35 to $40 million, but those numbers haven't been finalized yet, so we'll see. Of course, there's projections based upon what TV earnings are, and then there's bonuses and everything else. You take a look at conference-generated revenue through opportunities in NCAA tournament play, and so on and on and on. It's just interesting because, everybody's now in a situation where they're all looking up at the Big Ten needing cash. I don't think any Big 12 school, now that I think about it, will take the Redbird deal because it's not a good deal, and I think Redbird would almost prefer them not to take it. I'm sure they'd take the money, and that would be great, but it just doesn't seem like a great deal, and especially given $30 million in 1 year is fine, but then you have to pay back more than that at the 10% level. Mm-hmm. You need that money every year, right? The problem here isn't the 1 year difference, because a $30 to $40 million difference in 1 year is substantial, but a $30 to $40 million difference every year is more substantial because it compounds every year.
Right. And to me, it was jarring to see the gap between the Big Ten and everybody else. It's not a coincidence that the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships with Indiana and Ohio State and Michigan. Their distributions were up $490 million.
Wow.
From the year before. So the average payout, to your point, is almost $80 million per school. Ohio State got $91 million. Penn State got $89 million. So
Purdue got 80.
Purdue got 80, more than Alabama. The Purdue Boilermakers got more revenue, payouts from their conference, than the Alabama Crimson Tide. And so at what point does the SEC start to feel some pressure and maybe we're already there in terms of the Big Ten is the premier conference. And, like, when does Alabama say,
we're already there.
Like, hey, that's not cool. Purdue making more than us? And, like, the Big Ten did it differently. The SEC built its brand on football dominance. For a very long time, the money followed. The Big Ten, they flipped the script, right? They built the money first. They bring in these new members. They've got CBS, Fox, NBC, Peacock, which is similar to what the Big 12 is looking to accomplish and has already accomplished with basketball. So the Big Ten had the most widely distributed media package in college sports history when it comes to football. So the SEC had the titles. The Big Ten now has the titles and the money. We are there very much so.
Yeah, very much so. And, I mean, you're right in terms of just if they continue to win. I mean, the SEC is already ticked off at the level they've been winning at, but there's still, I think, a belief of like, well, we're going to catch back up. If they don't, or let's just say the Big 12 overtakes them, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Well, and see, I like the fact that the Big 12, whether these schools opt in or not, just to have it there tells me that the Big 12 is more following that Big 10 model of, hey, let's get the money first, and then the dominance will follow. The winning will follow. Closing that private capital deal is very much in the camp of we've got the money, now everything else follows. Whereas the SEC went the other way. So I like the move, again, whether or not schools opt in, because it gives more available resources to these members in this conference if they need it.
That's James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. The one thing I'll say about that is I don't think most will take it because, and most won't do what Duke did because they want to put together a sample that's good enough for the conference to go to market again to be in the same ballpark as the Big Ten or the SEC. And at that point, the ACC may be broken down and ripe for the picking.
ACC's cooked. Like, they are cooked. I don't see any other way. And I think the Big 12 is doing a really nice job of positioning itself to be in that position.
Cohesion first, positioning second, and that's what they've done. All right, on the way next, we're doing a deep dive into the safety position. We're doing a Big 12 top 5 at every position series, and safeties is next. It's our last position group on the defense, and safeties really stands out, both for players that are returning and newcomers through the portal. James Wesley, Ari Tepkin, Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Extended drive brings up a 3rd and goal.
The stats crew runs free.
And away we go, 20 minutes away from visiting with Kansas baseball coach Dan Fitzgerald, who has his Jayhawks in first place in the Big 12 right now at 20-4, fresh off a sweep of Arizona. They've been hot. Dan Fitzgerald joins us. Talk about his KU Jayhawks. It's time now, though, to dig into the top 5 at every position. This will be our last on the defensive side of the football. We've already talked about interior defensive linemen, defensive end, linebackers, corners, and now safeties. Taking a look at the top 5 at each position. So let's not waste any time and get right to the top 5 safeties, James.
Yeah, and the safety position is really, really strong in the Big 12. I had about a dozen guys that I considered part of my top 5. But at number 5, I go out to Tempe, Arizona, Lyric Rawls, Arizona State, who is a newcomer for the Sun Devils, but nobody has more Big 12 miles on the odometer than Rawls. He was at Oklahoma State, and then he spent 1 year at Kansas. He had 73 tackles last year. He had 7 pass breakups and an interception and was KU's best defensive back. He started all 12 games. He's expected to be the direct replacement for Xavier Alford, and Arizona State runs that 4-2-5 scheme, so safety is a very important position for the Sun Devils. He's already locked up a starting role heading into fall camp. He had a tremendous spring. He's never really been like a huge name, but he's just always rock solid. I've got Rawls at number 5.
Yeah, Xavier Alford left and forwent his last year of eligibility and did not go drafted. But Lyric Rawls steps in and I think is a very similar skill set to take up exactly where Alford left off. I also have Lyric Rawls at number 5, who, again, started all 12 games, did not allow a single touchdown in coverage all season. So completely fully healthy all year. Played nearly every defensive snap, did not allow a single touchdown in coverage all season. Lyric Rawls, the Kansas transfer to Arizona State, number 5 on my list.
Number 4 for me, I stay out in the desert. Arizona is going to have an all Big 12 defensive back because they do every year. And I think it comes from the safety position with Malcolm Hartzog Jr., a senior transfer from Nebraska, from a super small town in Silver Creek, Mississippi, a town of only about 200 people. 3-star recruit, signs with Nebraska, becomes a 3-year starter, but I don't think he's on anybody's radar because he had a season-ending lower body injury after just 2 games last season, so he got a medical redshirt and got 1 more year of eligibility, but he had over 100 tackles. He had 21 pass breakups and 8 interceptions. He also logged over 1,700 defensive snaps for the Cornhuskers. Arizona's got to replace all 5 starters in the secondary. He's got the most experience of any newcomer. I think he's going to be a dude this season.
Okay, this is getting weird.
Okay.
I also have Malcolm Hartzog at number 4. A reminder for people that we do not share our lists with one another. So these are we come up with these completely independently, and I have Malcolm Hartzog as well at number 4. He was all Big 12, all Big 10 honorable mention in 2024 after leading Nebraska with 4 interceptions. He has 8 career interceptions, 13 career pass breakups, and over 1,700 career snaps. So, yeah, a huge plug-and-play addition to a secondary that needs it, given all the players they've lost in the portal. I also have Malcolm Hartzog at number 4.
Okay, if we have the same number 3, wheels off, because this is my hidden gem. This is my diamond in the rough. At number 3, I go with Antoine Peak Jr. from Cincinnati. Redshirt senior, 6'1", 214. Originally went to Cincinnati as a walk-on. His dad, Antoine Peak Sr., is Cincinnati's all-time sack leader. This is his son. His dad was a third-round draft pick in 2003. How old are we? He played 65 games in the NFL. So his son, last year, he had 60 tackles. He had 2 forced fumbles. He had a sack. But outside of those numbers, he had the Big 12's best safety grade, according to Pro Football Focus. Now, this season they're saying he might move to outside linebacker, but I still list him as a safety because that's what he's played his first 3 years in Cincy. I think he'll kind of be all over the place for the Bearcats, kind of be their new version of Jake Gaudet.
Yeah, this is where our lists deviate. Number 3 for me is Utah safety Jackson Benny. Started 11 games on defense, a former walk-on. He led Utah's secondary with 64 tackles, tying for 4th in the Big 12 with 4 interceptions, had 103 interception return yards, 5 pass breakups, 4 tackles for loss, and became only one of 15 FBS players to block multiple kicks, getting his hands on both a field goal and a punt this year. So he is extremely versatile, extremely multifaceted. Jackson Benny, the Utah free safety, is my number 3.
Love it. Love the deviation. And you're going to love me butchering the name of my number 2. The BYU safety who's a stud. Falatau Satuala.
Yeah.
Feels right.
Yeah.
6 foot, 200
Not sure you
pounds.
gave it the right accent, but I'll give it a passing grade.
Polynesian, you know my skills. All right, he was the top prospect in the state of Utah when he signed with BYU back in 2024. He chose the Cougars over UCLA and Utah, but 83 tackles last season, 3 picks, 2 forced fumbles. He had a pick 6 and a sack, and he was a second-team All-American. So we've got an All-American safety coming back. He's supposed to be a day 1 or day 2 NFL draft guy if he takes another step forward in 2026. BYU ranks top 6 nationally in returning production on the defensive side of the ball. He is the centerpiece, him and Glasker, of that unit. Second-team All-American, best safety NFL draft prospect in this league, which is why he's number 2 on my list.
Number 2 on my list, maybe your number 1, I suppose, which is Jamel Johnson, the strong safety from TCU. Was incredible last year. 96 total tackles, 5 interceptions, got all Big 12 recognition. And when you factor in that Bud Clark is gone, he's going to be a huge piece left over in TCU's defense. He did briefly enter the transfer portal before opting out to return to Fort Worth, and that's a huge coup for Andy Avalos' defense because, this defense is going to be built around him as the anchor. Jamel Johnson, my number 2 in terms of the best safeties in the Big 12.
Okay, cannot wait to see who I've missed because Jamel Johnson is my number 1. The TCU safety from here in Arlington, 4-star out of high school. He held offers from Alabama, Texas, Oregon, and Oklahoma, and he chose TCU, and he's been there the entire way. Became a Thorpe Award semifinalist this past season. He was second team All Big 12, and he is the guy that'll step in and replace Bud Clark as kind of that anchor of the secondary. Started all 13 games last year as the other safety, had almost 100 tackles, had 5 interceptions. That was a team high. Had 3 TFLs. He led the entire league in picks, by the way, and he had that huge game against SMU when he had 2 interceptions in the same game, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. So with Bud Clark gone, TCU only allowed 240 passing yards per game last season. He was a big reason why. I think he, testing the portal, coming back, major pay raise, he's a guy that could be a first-round pick, second or third at worst next season. I've got Jamel Johnson, number 1.
Number 1 for me is Falatau Satuala.
Hey.
So you didn't miss anybody. You just probably underranked Satuala, who really emerged last year as a true sophomore. So he's a third-year player that is going to be for his first time eligible for the NFL draft. And I think we'll get into NFL draft later, but this is one of the most draft-eligible players in the Big 12. 83 total tackles that led BYU's defense last year. 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumble, a pick 6, a sack. He was everywhere for that BYU defense. He is a 3-level player at strong safety, which is the reason he's, to me, the best safety on this list and one of the best defensive players on this list. In fact, I think tomorrow we should just rank the top 5 defensive players overall instead of going to offense right away, and then we'll make our way to offense and go top 5 offense.
I like that.
'Cause I'd love to see where Satuala would wind up. But, yeah, a true sophomore last year, emerging in a big way. Does not follow Jay Hill to Michigan, which many expected him to. Big addition, rather great job for BYU to get him back. Satuala, number 1 for me.
I think there's a lot of guys that would have been honorable mention that deserve a shout-out because this, like we said at the top of the show, position is very deep for the Big 12. Kentrell Webb from Houston.
He would be my first honorable mention for sure.
Started all 13 games for the Cougars. He had that interception in the end zone that led to the game-winning touchdown. I mean, he essentially, if he doesn't make that play, Houston has one more loss this season. That was in the UCF game. Jason Prevard from Kansas State is another guy who's going to play like safety and corner, 6'2", 200, all ACC last year at Virginia. And then Jacob Redding was another one from Baylor. He's a great story because he's from a small town in Texas and was a walk-on, was more of a wrestler in high school. He had a 66-yard pick 6 that sealed the win against Kansas State. and he is kind of the anchor of their secondary coming into this year. He had over 50 tackles, 3 interceptions last season, and started 9 games. So those were kind of some of my honorable mentions.
Yeah, also Raider Demooney, the BYU safety, played 816 snaps last year, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. So the BYU secondary, as good as anybody in college football. When you look at their linebacking and safety core, that's about as good as anybody, which is a big reason why a lot of people expect BYU to compete again towards the top of the Big 12. Also, Kamari Wilson, the West Virginia transfer from Memphis, 85 tackles last year, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. At one point, was the number 1 safety recruit in the nation, Kamari Wilson.
Yeah, he's a stud.
So another guy that's honorable mention here. Again, a list that is very difficult to crack because there's tons of talent on this list. When we looked at corner, I don't know that corner was that good in the Big 12. Safety is very good in the Big 12. Safety is a major strength in the Big 12. Also, Boo Johnson, the transfer from Tennessee at Colorado. Adrian Maddox, who spent a year at Georgia after dominating at UAB, is another Colorado transfer at the safety position. So a couple of other guys to pay attention to.
Yeah, and BYU hands down, if we're ranking secondaries, it's BYU number 1. Remember, they had 2 of the top 5 corners on both of our lists when we did this before the weekend. Also, just a quick note, a gut punch for Iowa State. Braden Alls is out for the year. Transfer safety from Toledo, had 5 picks last year, a forced fumble, over 50 tackles. He tore his ACL in spring. He maybe would have made my list if he was healthy.
All right, that's a look at our top 5 players at each position, safeties. We'll take a look at the top 5 defensive players overall on tomorrow's show, and then we'll go position by position on the offensive side. On the way next, let's talk with the best baseball coach in the Big 12 right now, at least the coach leading the best team in the Big 12. That's the Kansas Jayhawks, Dan Fitzgerald, who took over a program with just 4 conference wins and has them with only 4 conference losses here in year 4. It's Big 12 Today, visiting with Dan Fitzgerald next. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Attack the defense with your mind. Here he is. Morton, it's a deep ball. Left sideline, dropping it right in for Virgil. Oh, what a ball from Baron Morton. Beautiful pass. I mean, that's a big league throw. That is a clinic again to Reggie Virgil for a first down.
This is a BB. Like, that is a difficult throw to make, and what a catch.
Williams stays in. Play fake. Morton well protected. Spins one. End zone. Caught! He drops it in the bucket. Coy Aiken reels it in. 42 yards.
Downfield strike.
This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Let's visit now with the Kansas baseball coach, fresh off a sweep this weekend of Arizona. It's a program that's tied its record of 20 wins in conference play with plenty more to play at 20-4. Dan Fitzgerald joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Coach, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning, guys. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate your time and jumping on with us. And, you know, look, you had a lot of success last year. You make the NCAA tournament, but you lose a ton from that year's team. Did you have any expectation that this year's team would be as not good, if not better?
Yeah, I think we loved the talent that we brought in, and we did lose a lot, but we returned some really good pieces, including Dom Vagley and Brady Ballinger and Dario Lasoria and some key bullpen pieces. So we knew we had a good core back, and we thought we had brought in the right guys. So we really liked them and anticipated hopefully being really competitive. I don't know that any of us ever put a win number or, hey, we think we're going to be ranked at this point or blah, blah, blah. But we liked the guys and thought we had a chance to be pretty good.
Coach, what has gone into the 24 comeback victories this season?
Yeah, I think it speaks to two things. One, probably losing a little more hair than I'd like. I'd like to not have to do that all the time. It'd be nice to get out in front and cruise every once in a while. But I think it speaks to two. It's just a resilient group, and they're pretty unfazed. They just love playing. They just kind of play the pitch in front of them, and they don't get too rattled if we give up a run or if we score and they bounce back and punch back. So it's a resilient team. They've really bought into our deal of just playing literally the pitch in front of you and the day in front of you, and not getting too far ahead of yourself and trying to, we talk a lot about it's hard to hit a 5-run home run. You just got to literally win the next pitch, and they've really bought into it. And I think it's allowed us to stay in some games that if they're playing the scoreboard, it might be a little overwhelming.
You've got, quite a story and a really interesting history. I mean, coaching in Alaska for a period of time?
Yeah, I was in the Alaskan Summer League in 2004, which was awesome and one of the greatest summers of my life, and just a really neat opportunity that I had with Athletes in Action to coach in the Alaskan League. And then I moved straight from there to Florida. So I covered the United States pretty good that summer.
Why was it the greatest summer of your life, as you just said?
Well, it was the first time that I had been a head coach of the collegiate summer league, and so I think on the baseball side, I just learned a ton and got to coach against Ed Sheff and some legendary coaches, and that's back when the Alaskan League was kind of the Cape in Alaska. And so it was a great baseball experience. And then, on just the living life side of things, the sun never goes down. It was such a great experience. You'd get done with the game and go play golf or go fishing. Like, you don't sleep. It's just kind of whatever. You just kind of sleep whenever you get tired enough to fall asleep. And it was just a neat experience. Kids the host families that I lived with were amazing. And, you'd get home from a game and the kids were outside playing at 11 o'clock at night. And I just remember being like, hey, your kids really stay up late. And they're like, well, they go to bed really early in the winter. So it was just a really neat experience, met a ton of great people, and was mentored by some great guys. Chris Beck, who was the GM of the team, has become a lifelong friend, and a lot of guys that poured into me and helped me figure out how to lead a little bit.
Yeah, is there any concept of time when the sun never goes down?
No, it's the weirdest thing of all time. It takes a little while to adjust to it, but it's I can't imagine it in the winter. I do want to experience that someday. I'm not sure my wife will want to experience that someday. That doesn't really sound like a great couples getaway, go to Alaska in the middle of January. But it was a fascinating summer. I would highly recommend. We didn't play the midnight game that year. The Glacier Pilots and I can't remember who else played it, but they literally have a midnight game that starts at whatever time and they play through the night. I mean, it's a really cool experience.
Wow. Yeah. How unique. Also, did you get a degree in English?
I did.
How does that help in baseball?
That's a great question. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. The whole NHL and MLB thing seemed to not be working out the way I thought it was going to, and I literally was a junior, and my academic advisor said, "You literally have to pick a major." And I said, "Well, I'm either going to go into ministry or coach." And I just remember that the advisor said, "Well, you've taken an English class as an elective every semester." And I had a great high school English teacher by the name of Bud Jensen, who, by the way, is an enormous college baseball fan. And he had made a really big impact on me, and he kind of made writing click in my mind. And so I'd taken all these electives in English, and I just went with it. And I do think on the funny side, I don't think it's helped me at all. I don't think the fact that I took 3 semesters of Shakespeare or 2 semesters of ancient American literature is helping a whole lot with whether or not to go to the bullpen. But I do think the discipline of having to write and edit and really grind through those. I mean, those papers are no joke. I remember my senior year being like, this is insane. Like, you're writing a 27-page thesis paper. It didn't seem like a great decision at the time. But I do think the discipline in having to stick to a process was actually, I think I actually use that every day.
Yeah, that.
Totally. I write great emails, man. You ever get an email from me, it's going to be accurate.
Flawless. Love it. Hey, what's it like coaching at like the hottest ballpark in America right now? You've got the longest Big 12 home winning streak in program history. I imagine it's like from where you sit and where you see it, just the vibes at Hoagland Ballpark have got to be incredible.
Yeah, I've joked that after 25 years of doing this, I don't have many emotions left, and my nerves are kind of, frayed, and this sport has a way of just making you very, you're going to get some good, you're going to get some bad, and you just kind of ride it. And you do that for 56 games a year, and my hair stands up on my arms every home game. Like, that student section is unbelievable, and I've been so blessed in my career to coach at so many cool places and so many cool venues and so many big games, and there's nothing like our student section. And I think it's a really cool deal. We're about 40 yards south of Allen Fieldhouse, and I remember my first basketball game at KU and watching the student section, and I just had the thought of, gosh, if we could get, a tenth of them to walk 40 yards south, it'd be pretty special. And they've literally brought that same vibe. There's some really non-traditional baseball things that happen at our baseball games, because I think they've brought a basketball atmosphere to a baseball stadium, and it's amazing, and it's pure, and it's original. There are a group of guys that sit in the front row that have led the charge, and they're unicorns, man. They are literally like the stuff they come up with. Those dudes aren't afraid to wear a batting helmet for 4 hours. Like, they're really funny, and they're into it, and our guys have really done a nice job of connecting with them, and it's very organic. Like yesterday or 2 days ago, we had BP on the field after the game, and oh gosh, there were 100 students lined up to hit, and our guys were out there for an hour after the game with them, just hanging out. So it's been a really special thing at a really special place, and very blessed to be here.
Yeah, and I'm curious what drives you. Are you driven to continue to build at what you've been doing at Kansas, kind of build a program that hasn't had any success in baseball like you've been doing? I mean, what's most important to you in terms of where you want to be coaching and what you want to be doing?
Well, I'm doing it right now. I mean, this is the exact reason we came here, was to build and do something special, and You know, I've joked, but it's true. I'm pretty simple. I love the Lord. I love my wife. I love my sons, and I love winning baseball games. And outside of that, it's you know, I play golf maybe twice a year. I shoot a duck about once every 10 years now. So there's not a whole lot going on outside of my faith, my family, and my team. And you know, I very much I've loved every second of building this thing, and we've got a long way to go. I mean, it's been fantastic, and but we are a long way from where we need to be in all phases, and so that fires me up. That I don't need a whole lot of help waking up in the morning. One, I've got my kids that help me do that, but two, you know, I can't wait to get after it, and Lawrence is a special place. My athletic director is an absolute stud, Travis Goff. My sport administrator, Sean Lester, is an absolute stud. So we have incredible support from our administration. I've got my original staff with me. They're amazing. And, yeah, we're just grinding it out. We've got woke up this morning and we've got a big day today to get ready for a really good Creighton team tomorrow. So what drives me is the fact that, I get another day on this earth to try to move this thing forward and try to do it with an amazing wife and 3 awesome sons and a bunch of people around me that I love.
Well, Dan, can you be just a little less fired up when you play Kansas State? I'm an alum. We had football, crop judging, and a little bit of baseball, and now you sweep the Wildcats. You've taken everything from us, but what did that rivalry and that series mean for you and for your players?
Well, yeah, it was awesome, and you know, there are very few people in this game that I respect as much as I respect Pete Hughes. He is he's a great man, and we've known each other for a long time, and I've got all the respect in the world for him and his entire staff. And it's an outstanding rivalry, and the crowd was incredible over in Manhattan, and I mean, you could feel it, and it's not a real pro KU fan base. I don't know if you picked up on that, but they don't necessarily love the Jayhawks. So, but our guys loved every second of it, and that's one of the things I love about our guys is they've embraced playing on the road, and they've embraced Missouri. We played there earlier in the year, and that's a different kind of rivalry. That one, same thing. Our guys just embraced it, and it was an incredible weekend to go over to Manhattan and sweep a really good K-State team. And yeah, I think college rivalries are what make this sport so special. So yeah, it's a great one, and it's really nice that they're right down the road, and we get to do it every year.
Yeah, well said. Last one for me, and that is this quote from you where you talked about the challenges at Kansas, and you said, quote, "You can out-team someone, you can out-together someone, and that's what I care about." Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think, we've got challenges. Like every program has challenges, and, when I was with Jay at LSU, we had challenges, and when I was at DBU, we had challenges, and I think that there are always going to be someone's always going to have more NIL, someone's going to have more rev share, someone's going to have a nicer stadium and a better indoor, and all those things. But the one thing that you can control, and it doesn't take money to do it. It doesn't take it's a choice, and that's to be a great teammate, and you can literally, that's something that you as a player and you as a coach and a staff and a team can control. And so I think that's been a big one for us of no one's going to enjoy it more. No one's going to be more together. No one's going to be more connected in terms of our alignment, in terms of what we're doing. And those are the things ultimately that I care about. I've said it before that our program, I think we care about people and who's in the room way more than the things we have, and we've got all kinds of great things. We've analytically, we're super lined up, and we've got all kinds of stuff, all kinds of resources. And I'll use TrackMan as an example. Like, we have TrackMan like everyone else. I'll take the people over TrackMan all day long. I don't spend a whole lot of time with recruits talking about, hey, we charter flights here, and this is what we get with Adidas, and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, I talk about the people we have in our room, and to me, that's what makes this place special.
A special man, Dan Fitzgerald, Kansas baseball head coach, 20-4 in conference play. Keep it rolling, man. You're making us all very, very proud. Thanks so much, Coach. Be well.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Rock Chalk.
Rock Chalk. Dan Fitzgerald. We expected Kansas football to have a good year this year. They disappointed. Kansas basketball to a degree. Kansas baseball is as good as any program at KU right now, and it's remarkable to see. It has been an incredible turnaround. It's been led by Dan Fitzgerald here in year 4 now.
And he's won everywhere he's been. He got his first college baseball coaching job at Des Moines Community College. Started churning out players to power conference schools. And then he goes to Dallas Baptist. And he spends 9 years there as an assistant before he gets an assistant job at LSU. And at Kansas, his first year, 25 wins, doubled their conference win total. His next year, they win 31 games. Last year, they set a program record, winning 42. They make their first NCAA tournament appearance in over a decade, since 2014. And then this year, they've already matched the best record in KU baseball history through 48 games. He is a fantastic baseball coach.
Well, and you said what, they won 42 last year, which was a program record.
Yep,
well,
they're only 5 away from.
Yeah, they're gonna break that this year unless things go horribly wrong. And they had a guy yesterday, Don Vagley, strike out 15 against Arizona. So back-to-back Wildcat sweeps for the Jayhawks with K-State and then Arizona.
They are cruising 15. That's a number.
And now up to, I believe, number 9 in the latest top 25, which is released each and every Monday. Still feels kind of low. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. And Jordan Reed from ESPN has a way too early 2027 first-round NFL draft. I think he's missing some Big 12 players. We'll get into that next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
He didn't get to learn from the Red Snap guy that maybe a Sundays.
Well, he seems to be doing okay right now. As Barry Bachmeier's pass is complete for a first down to Carson Ryan. Big chunk yard runs here tonight, though. 2 in the 40s, 1 in the 50s, down to the end zone. Ryan! Oh, he has it! What a catch! Touchdown!
On Instagram, 1.3 million followers. It's a phenomenal museum with books from the last 600 years.
Well, the book on this offense is that it has a lot of potential. Ryan making the catch for the first down.
Retzlaff from the program. Bachmeier began to start.
Bear will throw another open man. Carson Ryan strolling in for the touchdown. Ryan's second of the season. Bachmeier with time over the middle. Completed midfield in a first down catch by tight end Carson Ryan. Sort of moving offense. That was intense. Josh Eagle on the sideline with his star wideout. Bachmeier across the middle to the tight end.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. So great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Big 12 Radio is brought to you by the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo. And Jordan Reed, who covers the NFL Draft for ESPN, released his way too early first-round mock for 2027. And it's always interesting to look at, especially on the heels of what was a fantastic draft for the Big 12 here in 2026. But Reed, so far in his way too early, only has one Big 12 player listed as a first-round pick for the 2027 draft, and that would be Oklahoma State quarterback Drew Mestemaker. Pretty remarkable, quite frankly, when you consider how bad Oklahoma State's been for the last few years, but they've got him going 14th to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He writes, the Steelers have been in the quarterback wilderness since Ben Roethlisberger retired after the 2021 season. With Aaron Rodgers expected to do the same shortly, is this Pittsburgh's best opportunity to swing for a franchise quarterback? And then lists out kind of his story and his trajectory. The first overall pick, by the way, that he has is Arch Manning, the Texas quarterback, going number 1 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. Your thoughts, James?
Well, it would be an amazing story for Mestemaker to be drafted that high, but I do think it's possible. I mean, he's big-bodied. NFL scouts love his arm. I mean, he has some serious velocity. From a 0-star walk-on at North Texas to the season that he had this past year with 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, if he continues to grow at the rate that he has, and remember, he's got Eric Morris as his coach, who turned Cam Ward from a 0-star walk-on at Incarnate Word to the number 1 pick. So maybe 14th is too low for where Mestemaker could ultimately be taken. But for him to do that, this tells me that Oklahoma State is projected to have a nice year. A nice year, I think, is 7-5, maybe 8-4, but to definitely be playing in a bowl game. Because if you look at the NFL draft and the way quarterbacks have been selected over the last 3 or 4 years, guys playing for 4-8 or 5-7 teams aren't getting taken. Not in the first round.
No.
Ty Simpson this year, Mendoza skyrockets with Indiana's national championship. Even 2 years ago, same thing with Jackson Dart and Cam Ward. And the year before that, Jalen Daniels. Drake May's North Carolina team had kind of a down year, but they were still a bowl team, won 7 or 8 games. And the number 1 pick that year was Caleb Williams, whose USC team down year was like 9-3, right? So to get drafted that high, you have to have a good year. But he has one Big 12 player on his mock. I've seen several that don't have any, which isn't going to happen, frankly. I mean, trajectory of the league, trajectory of the draft, historically, I don't see how the Big 12 has no guys taken in the first round, especially coming off a year where there were a bunch of guys taken in the first round that weren't projected to be taken in the first round going into the season, basically outside of David Bailey and Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, so you look at Jordan Reed's same way too early mock from last year, May 1st, 2025, okay? This is not to pick on Jordan Reed because this is a fool's errand, right?
Yeah, he's not alone.
Right. Cade Klubnik, number 1 overall. Caden Proctor, the offensive lineman for Alabama, who went in the second round, number 2 overall. Peter Woods, who was a first-round pick and had a great 2024, only to have a down 2025, 3rd overall. Lenora Sellers, Jets, 4th overall. Caleb Downs, 5th, so he hit there in terms of having a top 10 pick. The offensive tackle from Oregon, Isaiah World, 6th. Garrett Nussmeier, 7th. Now, he did have the Rams trading up to draft a quarterback, so at least he was right with the Rams wanting a quarterback in the first round, but they had Garrett Nussmeier going 7th overall. I don't believe he was drafted. Drew Aller, 8th to the New Orleans Saints. They had T.J. Parker, 9, Keldrick Falk, 10, Anthony Hill, the Texas linebacker, 11, Spencer Fano, 12th. So he did hit there. He also, if you go later on in this first round, he also had Caleb Lomu as a first-round pick, 23rd. And then, so that would be it in terms of, David Bailey, he had 28th to the Buffalo Bills.
28th?
He had 28th. So he had 3, Jordan Reed last year had 3 Big 12 players getting selected in the first round. And he was right about all 3 of them. He just missed on 3 more.
Yeah, we doubled that number. Garrett Nussmeier, by the way, did not get drafted. He was picked up as an undrafted free agent by the Kansas City Chiefs. So he's fighting with Justin Fields for that backup role behind Patrick Mahomes. That just speaks to how much can change over the course of a college football season.
Especially at the quarterback position, guys. Like, all those quarterbacks listed there, no Ty Simpson, no Fernando Mendoza. The two that went in the first round, including the number 1 overall pick, he had Cade Klubnik. Did Cade Klubnik get drafted?
I think he's still in college. Was he a senior?
No, you're right. I think Klubnik did end up going back.
He had a really bad year last year. Drew Aller was another guy who was projected to be probably a first, maybe second-round pick going into the year. And this year...
No, Jets. He signs an undrafted free agent with the Jets.
Undrafted free agent. 2 years ago, remember, Quinn Ewers was an undrafted free agent. Or maybe he went in the 7th round. But, like, a lot of times these quarterbacks that are projected to be first-round guys, it doesn't translate.
Okay, I went 0 for 2. 4th-round pick.
Okay, 4th-round pick?
We finally got it right.
Who was the 4th-round pick?
Cade Klubnik went 4th round to the Jets.
Got it.
Only took about, 3 guesses, but we got there.
But look at the quarterbacks that are projected to be first-round, top 15 picks for 2027. Arch Manning projected to be number 1. After that, it's DJ Moore, projected to go top 3.
Dante
Moore. Thank you.
DJ's the wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills.
Yes. CJ Carr, Notre Dame, projected to go top 5. And then Mestamaker's number 4. How many of those top 4 quarterbacks will be selected outside the first round? Drafted round 3, round 4? If history is any indication, it'll be half.
Well, that, and if history's an indication, whoever the quarterback that's going to be the number 1 overall pick is not on that list.
Not on the board. Yep. Lenoris Sellers is nowhere to be found. Back in college. DJ Lagway was projected to be a first-round pick by a lot of analysts. Nowhere to be found. He's at Baylor. So the quarterback position, among many others, is very much up in the air. So when I think about, okay, first-round picks for next year, the depth charts that I immediately pull up are Texas Tech and Arizona State. Based off recent success, BYU is another one that I would look at for next year. BYU had a lengthy drought of guys not getting taken at all in the NFL draft. I think that changes in 2027 with multiple guys taken, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 teams I look at immediately.
No, I mean, in terms of first-round picks in 2027, A.J. Holmes, Bryce Pollock, Mateen Ibirogba, and then potentially Austin Romaine, Trey White.
Even maybe Adam Trick. He's the other guy I had.
Yeah, there are 6 names, which, like, I could see any of these 6 getting drafted. Now, I don't think all 6 will be first-round picks, but, like, A.J. Holmes, to me, is probably the most likely to be a first-round pick out of that Texas Tech group. And then Bryce Pollock, a guy that I egregiously missed in my top 5 corners. By the way, I may have him in my top 5 defensive players. Go figure that one. Another guy that – because you've got to look at 2 things. Premium position, and then how talented they are and what they're good at. And I think when you look at A.J. Holmes or Bryce Pollock, those are 2 guys that are playing premium positions that will go in the first round. Maybe not as premium as defensive end or at other spots, but I think those 2 stand out. I think Omarion Miller from Arizona State, to your point, is a guy that stands out, a guy that had 800-plus receiving yards last year at Colorado. You get him in a better system, he could take over for Jordan Tyson, become a first-round pick. So I think you're right in terms of Arizona State, Texas Tech, and BYU. The problem with BYU is I'm not sure they've got anybody at a premium position that could be first-round pick.
Exactly. Their best player is L.J. Martin, who's the reigning Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, but he plays running back. And I did the same thing. I looked at offensive linemen. I looked at edge rushers, defensive tackles, wide receiver, and then probably cornerback. Not a ton of corners are going in the first round these days, but edge rushers and offensive linemen and receivers are the big 3 to me, if you don't have a star at quarterback, which Mestamaker could very well be. So A.J. Holmes, who Pro Football Focus does have him as a first-round pick. They have him 23rd overall to the Eagles. He had 5 sacks last year. He was nearly unstoppable in the Big 12 title game. He's going to be the anchor of that pass rush. And then Pollock, definitely. I think Evan Johnson is a guy that could potentially be a first-round pick. The corner from BYU had 5 picks last year, long, rangy, probably day 2 or day 3 right now. And then Jamel Johnson, I don't know that he's a first-round pick, but he's day 2 or day 3. And then the 2 receivers at Arizona State. Okay, the desert has something cooking at the wide receiver position with T-Mac, Jordan Tyson. Who's the next wave going to be? Well, Marion Miller's the number 1 candidate to me because he's 6'2", 210, runs like a deer, second-team All-Big 12. You mentioned his numbers. He was the number 2 wide receiver in the portal, and he didn't really have a quarterback that was capable of completing balls down the field. And he still had a massive year, almost 20 yards per catch and 8 touchdowns. So with Cutter Boley, who's projected to be the Arizona State quarterback, major breakout potential there, or even Reed Harris, who was already on NFL Scouts' radar as maybe a late first-round pick, second-round pick when he was at Boston College. Had less than 700 yards receiving, but again, Boston College really struggled to throw the football. Bill O'Brien's their head coach, by the way. He's 6'5", 220. He has a tremendous catch radius, plays above the rim, if you will, with his vertical leap. So those two, I would think one of those 2 guys definitely has first-round potential.
Well, and then you have to look back at what we talked about last week, that it was 22 tight ends were taken in the 2026 draft, the most ever since 2002, with 9 taken in the first 3 rounds. Terrence Carter Jr. is another player from Texas Tech that stands out in that way in terms of his ability as both a pass catcher and a blocker.
Cole Rusk maybe at Arizona.
Cole Rusk, good call. If he has a big year this year, the transfer from Illinois, he could be a guy as well that shows up just based on the premium position that is the tight end position and how much it's become a huge focal point for NFL offenses.
And the thing about the tight end is when does teams have taken tight ends in the first round, but there was only 1 this year. Everybody else went round 2 or later, and a ton came off the board in the 3rd and 4th round. But there were 15 more tight ends taken in this draft than last year's draft.
Wow.
And the Big 12 was deep last year, and it'll be deep again this year.
The only other one to bring up is Howard Sampson, the Texas Tech offensive lineman, who, you could argue, he had some games where he looked better than Fano and Lomu. And he's a monster of a man, but I think, he said in a quote earlier this offseason that he was given a 5th or 6th round grade by NFL teams when he kind of dipped his toe in the water for the NFL draft. And so he's got to have a big year this year to, end up as a first-round pick. But what we saw from Texas Tech is, you go in with one spot and come out in a much better position from an NFL draft standpoint.
And that's the thing, Texas Tech, Joey McGuire brought this up when we talked to him last week. Every single player that transferred got better at Texas Tech and improved their draft stock, had better numbers across the board. So you're very much spot on with that. That's what you have to keep in mind. These guys could be even better this year, which means A.J. Holmes could be a top 15 pick when it's all said and done.
That's James Westlake. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We'll talk with Brandon Marcello from 24/7 Sports with the latest on Brennan Sorsby and what that's looking like for Texas Tech. On the way next, though, how TCU basketball is building. Is this the wave of the future, especially for the Big 12? This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Touchdown, Utah.
Under pressure, Dampier angles, caught. Did he get a foot down? He did. Touchdown. That's Dallas Bentley, the tight end.
Two tight ends. Dampier.
It's Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. So great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. Our Big 12 Power Hour today includes our newcomer series, taking a look at the top 5 newcomers at defensive line.
Did you say Power Hour?
That's right.
Here for that.
Big 12 Power Hour starting at 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern. 1 o'clock Central is the first Power Hour on Big 12 Radio. You can get the second one. Because what's better than 1 Power Hour but 2 at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Eastern time. Taking a look at our newcomer series at defensive line, the top 5 defensive linemen in the Big 12, and then Dan Fitzgerald, our interview of the day. He's part of our Big 12 Power Hour on a Monday.
Drink every time we say the word phenomenal.
That's right. Make sure it's Modelo. Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. And some portal updates in college basketball. Josan Sanin, the former Arizona State point guard, who I guess last year spent time at St. John's, has resurfaced as a Big 12 player now as he commits to West Virginia.
Yeah, where the heck has he been?
Yeah, and watching St. John's knock off my Jayhawks, I do not remember a Josan Sanin appearance.
Old friend alert. He played in 37 games. He started 14, so mostly came off the bench, averaged about 8 points per game. So, I mean, he was part of their rotation, played 21 minutes per game at St. John's, shot the ball not quite as well at St. John's as he did at Arizona State. And that's a massive get for West Virginia because this is a guy that maybe would have been drafted after his freshman year at Arizona State had he not gotten hurt. Remember, he got hurt and was nursing a really bad ankle sprain and tried to play through it. He still played 27 games his freshman year at Arizona State, which, again, was 2 years ago. But he was averaging around 17 points per game pre-injury. And then he would play 10, 15 minutes and just couldn't, and his numbers just plummeted. So, like his 11.9 points per game 2 years ago, very misleading in terms of the type of player he is. St. John's, I don't know that was like a great fit for him schematically, but he's an electrifying scorer, and that is very much a nice addition for West Virginia, who needed some more offensive firepower. He can be their go-to guy offensively.
And as one former Big 12 player becomes a future Big 12 player, Luke Bamboye continues to be a Big 12 player. Luke Bamboye, the forward center for Texas Tech, is heading to Fort Worth, as he announced on Instagram. So TCU is getting one of the top shot blockers in the portal, and Luke Bamboye, a guy who is, expected to factor into a big way for Texas Tech, but never really stepped into that role, and was injured most of the year. And by the time he got back and healthy, Texas Tech needed more from Bamboye because they lost their best and most important player.
So this tells me that Texas Tech coach Grant McCasland has something up his sleeve when it comes to post players, because TCU's not in a position to outbid Texas Tech for a starting center. I'm keeping my eye on Basamba Diop, the Arizona State center who's in the portal, still has not committed. I believe he had a do not contact tag when he entered the portal.
He did.
Which means he probably knows where he's going to land.
Well, he did.
Or he did. He didn't enter the draft, I'm not missing anything on Diop, right?
No, it's very bizarre.
Basamba Diop is a top 5 overall portal player. I mean, he would really change Texas Tech's outlook for this season. But the TCU way of doing things is really interesting to me because they lose David Punch in the portal, right? Started all 34 games, was their top scorer and rebounder and shot blocker. He did things at TCU that nobody's done since Kurt Thomas back in the mid-'90s. Top 10 player financially. Instead of even attempting to outbid Texas for him, they've taken that money and they've added 4 or 5 quality pieces, which is what Fran Fraschilla of ESPN, our buddy on the program, noted on social media. And I just thought, hey, that is not just TCU, but I think that's the way of many other Big 12 programs with what Jared Calhoun has done at Cincinnati, even to a degree what TJ Alselberger does at Iowa State. Instead of overpaying for a top 10 prospect, you get 4 or 5 solid pieces that hopefully add to your depth. And this might be the best way I don't know that it's the only way, but the best way for the Big 12 to continue its success in basketball.
Yeah, Fran on X posts, no disrespect at all to David Punch, a nice, solid Big 12 conference starter, but TCU basketball has turned his asking price into 4-5 solid players, and sophomore DJ Thomas is on a Punch trajectory. Thomas, the guy that transfers to TCU from West Virginia. And, yeah, I mean, it's hard not to buy into that narrative from Fraschilla, and I think it's a math problem that a lot of Big 12 teams are having to solve. You know, we heard Arizona State in football basically have to make the same math call here in terms of, do you sign Sam Leavitt and give into his asking price, or do you take that dollar amount and reapply that to 5 or 6 other players that can help you in different ways? You know, in basketball, it's interesting because one guy can make that much of a difference, way more so in basketball than in football. And look, Texas has spent a lot of money. If David Punch is outside of the budget for TCU, and yet Texas added him and like 3 other guys, number one, it says a lot about what Texas is doing in the portal and how much money they're spending. No surprises there. But number two, I think to your point, like, not every school needs to operate this way, but the majority of the Big 12 schools do, especially in basketball.
And the Sam Leavitt Arizona State comp, essentially Arizona State traded Sam Leavitt for probably 3 other guys that they wouldn't be able to get. Cutter Boley, the quarterback, 2 high-profile receivers, because receivers don't have the asking price as a $5 million quarterback, in Reed Harris from Boston College and Omarion Miller from Colorado. Essentially, a lot of these teams, that's what they're doing. Like, yes, it's a puzzle. It's a math. It's an equation. But I think about the NBA. It reminds me, the David Punch to Texas and TCU bringing in 4 or 5 prospects, if you will, it reminds me of these blockbuster NBA trades where you trade a superstar, but you get 4 or 5 draft picks in return. And a lot of times,
Yes.
the draft picks are
Yes.
the ones that end up being a better trade. And that's what the Big 12 is banking on, is that those 4 or 5 guys will be better. And now I look at TCU's roster, and I'm sure some of that David Punch money went to retaining a lot of these guys, like a Xavier Edmonds, like a Micah Robinson, Toulson, and Harding. But I would bet on TCU's roster now being better than it was last year. DJ Thomas is a tremendous add. That one makes sense. You know, he's from Allen. He's from Allen here in the Dallas area. Had only 1 power conference offer and actually had no power conference offers. He was offered when Ross Hodge was at North Texas, followed him to West Virginia, was an emerging freshman. His numbers don't tell just his potential. So that's a great add for TCU. Ryan Hunt is kind of next man up as a 7-footer. And then Bamboye, all of a sudden you've got some serious height on what was the shortest team in college basketball. So I would bet if that's a trade you're making, your superstar for 4 or 5 dudes, I lean the 4 or 5 dudes.
Yeah, look, and I think the other part to this, too, is the hunger piece, you know, and that is something we kind of highlighted when it comes to what NBA teams and NFL teams need to do right now, and that is not only are you trying to find the right talent with the right mentality, it's do these guys still have a hunger to drive them to be successful, because previously it was the hunger to get to the league, and that's where you can monetize in a big way, make life-changing money. Well, now you can do that in college. And, you know, so how hungry are these guys to continue to push to where they need to? And so, like, I think the same is true at the college level in terms of, like, you're adding 4 or 5 guys, and all those guys aspire to be at the level of David Punch, to go into the open market and command that kind of money. So I'd rather have a guy pushing for that than the guy that's done it, and then he comes back at that amount of money. Is he still the same player? You know, Dave Aranda failed but tried a similar approach when he came to NIL. Everybody's going to get the same amount. That was what he initially planned on doing. It sabotaged Baylor in many ways. And I think the issue with it was that he went into it with that mentality, as opposed to finding guys that were on the upward trajectory that you could pay at that level and then not worry about there being some upset feelings in the locker room or not being able to get certain players, because that was what went wrong for Baylor at that point in time.
And even with David Punch departing, Jamie Dixon has more players coming back than he's ever had in the NIL era. Essentially 4 starters coming back. Tanner Toulson, I know he came off the bench, but he played starter minutes. So I classify him as like a half starter. they've got a ton of experience coming back. And then you add 4 or 5 really high-level depth pieces. I love their squad. TJ Otzelberger's the other one that comes to mind. What he does at Iowa State, maybe the best portal operator, not just in the Big 12, but maybe the country. When you look at what he did with Joshua Jefferson, what he's done this offseason with essentially he's put together a mid-major all-star team. He's brought in high-level players from the Missouri Valley. His one power conference addition outside of Taj Manning is Trey Singleton from Northwestern, who flew under a lot of people's radar because he only averaged like 7 and 5. Well, he was just a freshman, and he was the highest touted freshman in Northwestern history. Oh, and he played on a really bad basketball team. I look at Iowa State as another portal overhaul that looks really good. And then TCU, to me, they're top six seed in the NCAA tournament next season category. They are finally going to be off that 8-9 line with what they have coming back, the depth, the height. And we've touched on this many times before. Nobody does more with less than Jamie Dixon.
Yeah.
Like, he gets the most out of his teams. They're very well coached. They get a lot better as the season progresses. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the reality here is it's not just about the amount of money that you have in your program tied to boosters, donors, people that have the money. It's the willingness for those boosters or donors to support a certain program, right? In most cases, most of these guys with the money that want to support their universities are doing so in football. Occasionally, they'd come in at a different sport. It's rare to find the type of engagement you need for basketball. Kansas has it, right? I mean, the majority of donors involved with Kansas are going to support basketball in the same way that many of the programs are going to support football, right? So you've got to build your roster based upon that. And I think that's where, like, TCU and Iowa State are two prime examples of this. Like, they held their own fortunes because they didn't go and wait in the portal to try to outbid certain programs for certain players. They found guys that would make sense, that would be in the price range that they knew they could afford and promise, and then got those guys to sign the dotted line at a very early period of time in the portal. When you looked up, it's like Iowa State and TCU are both done, basically, because they know who they are, they know the type of players they want to attract, and they know what their budget is.
So they had very specific
yes
players that they targeted and that they signed early on.
Yep.
But then you also have Kansas, Texas Tech, Arizona. Those are the schools that let that first initial portal wave come and go, where all the crazy money's out there. Flory Badunga's making $6 million or whatever it is. And Texas Tech, and they go and they sign 2 20-point-per-game scorers from Hofstra and UNLV. I love Leroy Blyden at Kansas, all-MAC, freshman of the year in the MAC, averaged 17 points per game at the point for a very solid Toledo team. And then you saw it with Cincinnati, with Kansas State, these guys that are going out there and putting together 4, 5, 6, 7-member classes of guys that on paper you're like, hey, this guy could be pretty good. Same thing with Houston, the Gillespie forward from Kent State. Love that addition. 18 and 11 points and rebounds at Kent State. He's going to be hungry. He fits what Kelvin Sampson loves from that kind of tweener position where he doesn't shoot a ton of threes. He's explosive at the rim. He's active on the glass. He can finish. Cincinnati, who I brought up, you know, the guys that they've brought in. Tylen Riley is their headliner.
Yeah.
Comes in from Tulsa. He was all AAC, second team, averaged 15 points and 5 assists per game. Really, really impressive player. They bring in a 6'9" post player from Towson. They bring in a center from George Mason. Like, the Big 12 is putting together, and I said Iowa State put together a mid-major all-star team. A lot of other schools are doing the same thing, and we've seen in the past that can work.
Yeah, that's James Wesley. I am Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. On the way next, Brandon Marcello, senior college football reporter for CBS Sports, joins us next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, both heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here's this little look right over. Daniels floats one. End zone.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin, and we are pleased to be joined right now by Brandon Marcello, Senior National College Football Reporter for CBS Sports. Brandon, how are you?
Doing very well, man. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you, and appreciate your time as always. Very much enjoyed listening to your podcast this week, which centered a lot on the situation with Brendan Sorsby, the Texas Tech quarterback transfer from Cincinnati, who has reportedly some history on the gambling apps with sports wagering, some of which could end his collegiate career. But you, along with others, reporting that Sorsby has retained counsel from Jeffrey Kessler, who's a very well-known name in this space. Can you just sort of amplify what that means?
Yeah, Kessler's obviously a lawyer who just doesn't lose against the NCAA in the past. This is certainly a significant movement and shows that, Brendan Sorsby at the very least is wanting to see some type of resolution sooner rather than later. And the big issue here for Brendan Sorsby's camp, according to the sources I've spoken to, is that they're wanting to seek a resolution sooner rather than later because the NCAA investigation process, as you guys know, has been very slow moving throughout its history. And Brendan, of course, one has a college football season coming up, but also, too, the potential of the NFL supplementary draft being on the horizon here within the next, 2 months. Judging by the NCAA's history, that timeline probably won't be met while the NCAA is trying to figure out exactly what this will all lead to. We can make assumptions, of course, but you just don't know until you know. And so at this point, with hiring Jeffrey Kessler, they're trying to hold the NCAA's feet to the fire a little bit and saying, hey, we need to know exactly what you're doing and when it's going to happen. Otherwise, if not, we might end up taking you to court.
Can the NFL block him from entering the supplemental draft or playing in the NFL based off of what he's done in college?
It's a great question. My understanding as of right now is they cannot block him, but of course, these NFL teams may very well have an unspoken belief of, listen, don't touch this guy, especially if, once again, the investigation's active and open from the NCAA standpoint, because at that point, if you're an NFL team, you only know what you know, and if they don't want to take someone, that has what's going on at the present moment, but also what else is going to be uncovered. You need to have some finality to all this, and which is why Sorsby is seeking this. It's not necessarily just going out and seeing about, well, can I play some in college football? Will I not be suspended for an entire season or be permanently ineligible? But it's also, I need to do this so I can figure out where I might be able to go in the NFL, because these NFL teams are certainly going to want to know exactly what happened, when it happened, and that this was the full and complete case instead of just part of it.
Yeah, well said. And one of the things you guys were talking about on the College Football Insiders podcast with Richard Johnson and Chris Hummer was, the vetting process. And, I think there are a lot of people with questions about Sorsby and Texas Tech, and at what point did they know, and how much vetting is there involved when you're handing over a contract to pay a guy north of $5 million. And I think your perspective on it, Brandon, was really interesting. I'm hoping you can shed some light and share some of that.
Yeah, it's puts Texas Tech in a just strange position, just because everybody's going to go, well, how did Texas Tech know?
Right.
Not know.
Right.
And it's because, well, they didn't find out till about 3 weeks ago at this point when some of this data was provided to them. And so when it puts Texas Tech in this position of, well, we just signed him to a $5 million deal. Of course, we don't know the particulars of that deal. I'm trying to do some reporting on that. How much of it was front loaded? How much was it guaranteed regardless of anything like this happening off the field? But also Tech needs to know and needs to question the NCAA itself, which my understanding is Tech is doing so and has its own counsel of, when did you know, NCAA, When did his previous schools know? When was Cincinnati informed? And when was Indiana informed about all this? Because all the parties need to know as soon as possible. And if it was just the last 3 weeks, I mean, Tech 1, of course, has been put in a situation where they've kind of put all their eggs in one basket as far as the quarterback position. But if the NCAA knew much longer than just, 3 weeks ago, or for that matter, if any other school knew this beforehand, that's another issue upon itself that I believe, personally, that the NCAA's got to answer for and provide clarity to Texas Tech, because, we want to talk about, victims and all of this, and, no one feels sorry for anybody these days in the revenue sharing era with so much money going about. But, it's like going out and, just think of it this way. I'm not trying to say like a quarterback's just a commodity, like a car, but you don't want to go out and buy yourself a brand new car and everybody's like, yeah, it's ready to drive off the lot. And then 3 weeks later, you find out that the engine's made of a bubble machine, It's like, what was this? When did you know about this?
Right.
Why didn't you tell me this? So
Right.
It's a fascinating situation on so many levels, beyond, of course, just the allegations. But we really do need to know who knew what and when, and why did things that happened almost 4 years ago now, why is that just now coming to light?
Brandon, ultimately, what do you think is the most likely scenario for this whole thing when it's all said and done?
That's a great question. I think in the end, because of the hiring of Jeffrey Kessler, the attorney, that they'll get the NCAA to kind of ramp things up and at least provide some clarity before they actually reach a quote-unquote judgment, and it'll become clear to him that he's going to be permanently ineligible. The process of even seeking reinstatement would be very long, and that if you want to continue your football career, you're going to probably have to do so professionally. And if you want to do that, you need to be ready by July for a potential supplemental draft. And I think that ultimately that's what he'll end up pursuing. Now, if it becomes clear to him, again, this is an evolving situation. If it becomes clear to him during that process that the NFL might not touch him, then you wonder what he would be tempted to do from there. Would Jeffrey Kessler say, hey, listen, maybe your next step here is to take the NCAA to court about your eligibility and why it took 4 years for them, for example, to dig this all up, and then maybe find an avenue there for some type of negotiated resolution to where maybe he doesn't even miss the entire season. But again, the NCAA's rules are very clear cut here. If you bet on your sport, which is college football, you don't even have to bet on your own team, just college football, you are permanently ineligible. And there's been other cases where they have ruled similarly. And if, what we're reporting is true, and several others, that he was betting at least 20 times a day, not just on college football, obviously, but other sports, there's obviously a pattern here, and something needs to be done because the NCAA rules are very clear on all this. The education from the schools that he attended should have been very clear as well. And I think, like a lot of people, just the casual people watching this, it's like, I just don't see a way out of this for him to be able to play for Texas Tech this season.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about, that is the total amount of money that's handed out now by conferences. We learned publicly that the Big Ten is at nearly $1.4 billion, which is higher than the SEC. Is it too simplistic to say, well, that's why the Big Ten is where it is and where the SEC is where it is today? Do you think this could change? And how much do you think this over time will force the SEC's hand in some way?
I think it's already forced the SEC's hand just from the simple byproduct of this, of the success in the national championships that Big Ten won. 3 straight for them. The men's basketball, their conference winning a national championship for the first time in a couple of decades. The SEC's, I don't want to say put their back against the wall, but it's very clear that they need to respond somehow, some way. In this day day and age with revenue sharing, but also NIL. And my colleagues at CBS Sports did a great job writing about this, I believe, just about a little less than a year ago when this all started as far as revenue sharing, that the Big Ten is in a much better position than any other conference out there, including the SEC, to be successful and capitalize on this because the boosters and donor bases in the Big Ten up north are not necessarily bigger, but they are richer. Their top dogs are richer than anybody in the South. And when you implement the idea of, well, now we can start paying players through NIL, and then also you have to be able to have revenue sharing to a point where you're not threatened to have to cut your own sports. I mean, we just saw it at an SEC school within the last week or two, and that was Arkansas cutting both of their tennis programs because they can't afford everything that's going on with revenue sharing. And you have a transfer portal where there is absolute free market and they can move around as they come and go. Not only is the talent more spread out, but for the top teams in the Big Ten, the talent there is more concentrated than it's ever been, while the top talent in the SEC is actually more spread out because if you look at it, the SEC actually is the deeper conference from top to bottom.
Right.
But the big dogs in the Big Ten against the big dogs in the SEC have much more talent and depth because they're the ones that have the more money, and they're fighting mostly the other Big Ten teams, and they're going to the top teams in the Big Ten, whereas in the SEC, you might have a four-star guy leave Alabama and end up at a place like even a Vanderbilt nowadays. That's not happening in the Big Ten, and as long as this system is in place, as we see it with revenue sharing and NIL and the transfer portal, I think the Big Ten, I don't want to say they're going to continue to, the gap's going to grow between the Big Ten and the SEC, but I think the days of the SEC, dominating things for a period of 15, 20 years are over. And I think, if anything, you're probably going to see a seesaw effect where it's going to be the Big Ten for 3 years and then the SEC for 2 years and then the Big Ten again for 2 years. I think that's the new era we're in for. And meanwhile, the rest of college football is not just playing catch-up, but they need to play catch-up quickly. They got to figure out a way to close that gap because if you don't, that gap will get much wider over the next 5 years.
Good stuff. Brandon, I see some of your swag behind you. Is that a studio that doubles as a gaming compound?
No, I wish, but no, I've got a Lego Game Boy that my son and I built together. So I thought it was really cool. I wanted to put it on display. It actually has like a working screen on it too.
Wow!
Wait, you built that?
Yeah, it's you know how Lego is. You buy the box and it shows you how to build it or whatever. It's not like the old days when I was a kid and they didn't have any instructions. You just got a box of Legos and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Nowadays, they just walk you through it step by step. You can build anything. It's easy.
Okay, Lego. I missed the Lego part. I thought you were just building Game Boys from scratch. I had a lot of other questions. And then my follow-up would be, do you have any leaks on College Football 27, the video game? Because if you do, we must hear them.
I don't, but I'm very much enjoying some of the AI-generated videos I've seen just from the screenshots people that they've seen from the on-campus, I guess, portion of the of the video game. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Oh,
but
yeah,
there's a lot
Texas
of people putting
Tech,
in
West Virginia, all over.
Yeah, and it looks really cool, but I'm sure it probably won't look like that in the game. But I as long as we get more of the campuses involved and get that college feel, that game day feel, which is unique in any American sport, that's what they should be focusing on. But I'm just glad that game's back because I think it only helps college football in the the popularity of it.
Yeah, well said. Brandon Marcello does great work. Go follow the work he's doing for CBS Sports and the College Football Insiders podcast. Brandon, thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thank you.
All right, there's Brandon Marcello giving us his insight into the Brandon Sorsby saga, plus talking all things big picture, Big 12. What'd you think?
Man, first of all, I'm just a huge fan of Brandon's content. He is all over it for CBS. In terms of the most likely path, I think he kind of echoed what we led the show with when we broke him down. And the timeline, like, how much does the NCAA care? right? Because do they care that this is a high-profile quarterback who's owed $5 million to potentially play this season, or does he get lost in the shuffle with everybody else? That's what's fascinating to me and going to be the biggest thing over the next 2 months. Is there's a pretty hard deadline. If he's going to be in the NFL supplemental draft, June 30th is that day. So the Sorsby camp pushing for that, but I don't know that we get there.
Yeah, and again, it just kind of feels like Sorsby's doing what he could possibly do and the best that he could possibly do. But it just, again, kind of feels like, man, you're just going to be left out in the cold.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, maybe you can give it a go in the 2027 draft. But even then, based on what he's put on tape, I don't think he's draftable. I mean, it's crazy to think the numbers that come out about Sorsby, how at some point nothing went off in his head that's like, this is, like, I'm going to get caught. I should not keep doing this. Just some really bad behavior here that, in some ways you're trying to excuse or at least get to the bottom of. And the other way, you're like, man, you've just completely destroyed yourself. You sabotaged any potential NFL career here. It's like, and I'm not saying that Sorsby felt like he was bigger than the game, but man, the idea here that, like, did you not feel like you were going to get caught? Did you not feel like this day was coming at some point?
Completely agree. I mean, over 20 bets per day, over 10,000 bets, and much has been made. Well, they weren't, high dollar amounts, between $1 and $2.50. That's just scratching the surface. Like, those are the smaller bets. There were bigger bets made too. And to your point, especially with, I mean, he was betting at the same time that Hunter Deckers was betting on games. How do you not see that and think, if I get caught, like, that's the end of my career? That's the part that, I struggle with, and I think it also magnifies the fact that, sports gambling is very addictive, and it's very hard to just turn off. And so the support that he's now getting is a really good thing. And it's also, like, I hate to see that it's a Big 12 guy, and it's Brendan Sorsby. He's a great kid, but he is going to be the poster child for this moving forward. And he will be the example that every team uses during their literacy courses and everything else about, hey, take care of your business off the field so you don't become this.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, along with James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Play for Juju, cash it in. Instead of tackling for loss as Jamori Robinson flashes. You see right there that burst from the former American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year.
The last break. Well done by you. But it really is an alignment process, and it's not even a fake punt ball.
Second down, here's Whitman on a play fake. And pressure's coming. He got away from the first, but not the second. Set down by Corey McIntyre to bring up third down.
Explosive run. Their quarterback involved.
Six appeared to pounce on it as he coughed it up at the mesh point. Brett Perry, number 5 for West Virginia, up in the box. L.J. Martin involves freshman game. Corey Robinson brings him down. Robinson was the defensive player of the year for the American Conference last year for UTSA.
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 today. Center.com/events. With James Westling, and they knock off Oklahoma State or Iowa State. We shall see. Mark. It's that Iowa State, Oklahoma State events. Big 12 wrestling at the BOK at BOK in the heart of downtown Chips, presented by Allstate. The BOK Center in Tulsa is coming up next. But first, Anthony Tejada, the former TCU corner, about the position. That is coming up next. But first, roles for their programs. and wanted to make mention of those. All right, need to talk with Ranthony Tejada, the former TCU corner, about the position. That is coming up next. You're listening to Big. Radio. It's on Saturday, March 21st. That's a look at the
Sonny Dykes under Gary.
Time to get to it today.
And Big 12 wide receivers, all the
just felt like he was the more high profile. Next day,
I would probably say the Oklahoma great talented player.
Well, great to visit with you, Ranthony Tejada, the former TCU defensive back. Thanks so much for your time, man. Be well.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Appreciate y'all having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Getting some insight, on the position here from Ranthony. On the position here from Ranthony Tejada here on Big 12 Today. This is Defensive Backs Day. Breaking down our thoughts on the defensive back position and the top newcomers in the Big 12. James and I had two that
in the process, but some really great stuff. What a guy for him to
further to get more safeties.
50 seconds.
On our list for our producer. Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling on social at James Westling. I am Ari Temkin on social at Ari Sports. You can find us on X or IG under those handles. The Savannah Bananas were at College Station this weekend. They filled up Kyle Field. Over 100,000 capacity crowd to watch the Savannah Bananas baseball team. And this story just continues to be remarkable to me. In a world in which it feels like attention spans are dwindling and attention towards baseball is dwindling, just the excitement and passion and support of Savannah Bananas baseball is remarkable.
It's insane.
I don't know what it is.
Over 100,000 people watched a Harlem Globetrotters style baseball game. My kids are obsessed with the Bananas. I didn't even think they knew who the Savannah Bananas were. My son's rocking hats. We go to Shields. They've got a whole floor with banana stuff.
Well, and on my kids' baseball team, like, kids have the bat. They've got, all the merch.
It's entertaining, number one. They have a really good product. Number two, a masterclass in marketing, the Savannah Bananas. Do you know their original, their origin story?
No.
It's pretty wild. So they were founded back in 2015, so it took them a while to get to this point. But Jesse and Emily Cole stepped in after a minor league baseball team left Savannah, Georgia. They'd had a minor league team for over 90 years. So they found this semi-pro team in Savannah. Well, it went horribly wrong. By January of 2016, they were 3 months in. They'd already overdrafted in their bank account. They'd only sold a very small handful of tickets. They actually sold their house just to keep it alive.
Wow.
So in February of 2016, The locals were adamantly against it. Like, they said the owner should be thrown out of town. And then they just leaned in to this fans first entertainment style baseball. And gradually, over time, banana ball became a thing.
113 shows in 2025, 2.2 million tickets sold, 91% ticket redemption rate, over 35 million followers across social media, with more than a third of that arriving in a single year. They have exploded. I mean, like they have a TikTok following that has more combined followers than all Major League Baseball teams combined. 3.5 million people on a ticket waiting list.
Absolutely insane.
How does that happen?
TikTok, social media, again, an absolute masterclass. And, they built this thing on fan participation. I think that was the market inefficiency, was fan participation and quicker pace games. The games are much faster. But if you don't know what banana ball is, the players are doing like choreographed dances. They're doing comedic sketches. They perform during innings. And it used to be between innings. Now it's actually like during play. They do some wacky stuff. And so they started as a summer league team, right? And just gradually started to increase their fan base to the point where in 2022, they completely shut down the summer league and went all in on this banana ball. Like, they used to be more of a between innings. That's when they were the summer league team. And then the TikTok growth, 11 million TikTok followers. They've sold out NFL stadiums. They're selling out Kyle Field, which is larger than any NFL stadium. But the content strategy is where they leaned in.
Well, right? That and I think consumer habits. You talked about the market efficiency of being fan first, and I think that starts with ticket prices. So, I mean, they haven't changed ticket prices. Now, the secondary market has skewed that, but basically it was like, 4 tickets, family of 4, parking, food, $140. I mean, you go to a Major League Baseball game now, and you're not even getting in the stadium with a family of 4 for $140.
Yep.
Let alone parking and food and everything else. So I think, they started off with this face value all-inclusive deal that was extremely attractive. And I think now it's gotten to a point where, you hear that they've got 100,000 plus attending a game at Kyle Field. And I just think there's an intrigue level of I've got to see what that looks like.
Yeah, totally.
I think there's interest now from people what is it about them that they're drawing these insane crowds? And I think you get there and they deliver on it.
Mm-hmm. And even our millennial generation fall into that same camp of, okay, there's a lot of interest around this. What is it? I mean, I found myself deep diving Twitter and Instagram. I don't have TikTok, but when it became a thing, what is this? And the content strategy, so they have these daily OTT meetings is what they call them, over the top. And it's the staff, essentially, getting together. They even have a fancy name for it, banana-fying trends. So they look for these banana-fying trends, which they're on social media looking for the viral trends, and then they bring that to the diamond. But kids are obsessed with it, and adults are having a good time. Now they're on national television. The CW network is carrying 6 games. They've been on ESPN. They are the new age Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, and it almost feels like a level of popularity that the Harlem Globetrotters never reached, which is hard to believe because they're so popular. But, I mean, I can't imagine there was ever one venue in which they sold as many tickets as the Bananas seem to sell in every venue they go to. And it's funny because in some ways the Harlem Globetrotters field's crazy outdated, and yet the Bananas show that the model isn't outdated. It might just be what they do that's outdated. But I think the most maybe important part of this is it's more of a question, and that is, does this help Major League Baseball?
No, I don't think so. Now, what will be interesting...
It's interesting, though, to think about that, right? Because the initial thought was, of course it does. But I think the deeper you think about it, I'm not so sure about that.
Totally. I mean, side by side, baseball, Major League Baseball is very different, right? This is
It's the opposite. It's stuffy. It's not as much fun. It's very expensive. There's tons of games.
Exactly. This is an entertainment-first sport. And it's almost not even a sport. They just happen to play sports. It's very much entertainment-driven. And Major League Baseball now, I think, is playing catch-up. We've got to make the games a little bit quicker. We've got to make this more entertaining for the fans. And this banana ball, it's not just the team, which, by the way, it started out as the team, and you didn't know anybody on the team, right? It's just like, hey, these guys are kind of crazy and wacky and a little bit funny, like I'm in. But now they're starting to generate star power. They've got an outfielder who has 2 million followers on TikTok or close. I think he's at 1.9. And then they've expanded to now they have an entire league for banana ball. They used to just play one team.
Right.
They would travel with them. They would kind of be the villain. Every once in a while they would
Washington
win.
Generals, if you will.
Exactly. Now you have an entire league. You've got 6 teams. The Party Animals, the Firefighters, the Loco Beach Coconuts, the Indianapolis Clowns are new, the Texas Tailgaters. So it's not just the Bananas, it's banana ball. Now, those other teams don't quite have the draw that the Bananas do, but 3.2 million projected fans in attendance, projected to watch their 6 games in person.
Here's my other question. Is there an opportunity here in other sports? Is there a Savannah Bananas in basketball? Is there a Savannah Bananas in football?
Well, I would think in basketball there would be. I don't think in football, because football is such a physical, like, vicious sport. There's hitting. We wear helmets. Like, I think football is action-packed enough the way it is. Basketball, I would say yes, because it's worked before. You look at the Globetrotters and think about what they would have done if social media and trends and viral, which they were probably the more creative of the two because they didn't have those Instagram trends or TikTok trends that they could lean on during their OTT meetings. They had to do it all from scratch.
It's a great point. I would say that there probably is for both. Now, the reason I say that is because, again, like, we live in a viral social media world, like it or not. And, look, you have an issue, I think, with sports in terms of game watching, where you've got younger fans that are interested in the sports themselves, but they sit and watch full games. That I think is what sports right now are trying to combat, is the value of each individual game, both from a ticket, parking, concessions, and then, of course, TV standpoint. Well, I mean, you've got a lot of fans, younger fans that maybe consume your sport. We talked about this with the NBA through YouTube clips. Mm-hmm. So they may be a huge NBA fan and never watch any of your games. Mm-hmm. So how are you monetizing that? That's where it feels like the Bananas really leaned in. Like, oh, yeah, you don't have to watch the games, but the games are the fun part because there's no downtime. There's only fun and plenty of activities going on throughout.
It's just overstimulation for 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're dominating the age 6 to 13 demographic. Like 6 to 13 years old. These kids won't sit down and watch a Major League Baseball game, but the Bananas?
Which, by the way, like, that's the age group that many are after.
That's the moneymaker.
Yeah.
10
years from now, that's disposable income.
Yep. They take their kids to watch the Bananas. They take their kids to watch the Bananas. But the fascinating part to me will be, will we see an era of Major League Baseball players towards the tail end of their careers, feeling like their trajectory's not gone the way they want, team up and play in a league like this? There's already been one playing for the Indianapolis team, was drafted, can make millions of dollars doing that versus up and down, minor league, major league. That's the part that is kind of a wait and see because it just hasn't happened a ton yet, but I could see it.
Yeah, you're totally right. All right, this is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. A reminder, the Big 12 Power Hour starts today at 1 o'clock Central. You can catch our Top 5 Newcomers series as we took a look at defensive linemen. We will be ranking our top 5 defensive players overall heading into the Big 12 season for 2027 coming up on tomorrow's show. Thanks, as always, to our producer with Big 12 Studios, Anthony Smith. Thanks to Tama Turner with Tune In. Thanks to James Wesley. I'm Ari Temkin. Big 12 Today is back tomorrow. But for now, we're out. Peace.